Is it recording? Yeah, it is. The Indie Council is in session. Welcome, everyone. This is a place for the leading voices from across the industry to gather to talk news, titles, and everything indie. I'm your master of ceremonies, Jill Groth, the Indie Informer, and today, joining the council, definitely hanging around for the whole episode, Mike James Towndrow.
You have me for 23 minutes, and I'm gone.
And we're going to do
disappear
all of
from
it
your
in
lives.
yeah. It's like a wisp of smoke.
Never see me
Oh,
again.
we should have come up with something, some sort of fun. Yeah.
Oh, like a special effect moment.
Yeah.
If I had a lighter up here, I
Smoke
could have had the
bomb.
bang candle.
There we go. We didn't think about it.
Next time.
Waking up criminally early, Janet Garcia.
Hello.
Hello, Janet. I messaged everybody in chat, in the Indie Council chat, at a really normal, like 11 p.m. time. And Janet writes back to me before 7 a.m. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening here. She's awake enough to be texting people, so she's been awake longer than that. Like, good for you, but also, you okay? How you feeling?
Yeah, I get up at 7. I have content at 7 a.m. every Wednesday, so it's my early start day.
No, I don't believe in that.
So I'm there.
She's here, everybody. And making me proud as master of ceremonies, Jenny Wyndham.
Yes.
You did it.
Set out what I achieved to do, made Jill proud. I really can my week can conclude here, honestly.
Yeah, we're done. Boom.
We're done. I'm good.
Nothing else to talk about as far as I'm concerned. But we actually do have some stuff to talk about. So let's talk about dates to remember, because there's a lot going on in the next couple of weeks. And I'm sort of in denial that it's happening like in the next couple of weeks. So beginning with Ludo Naricon, May 1st through the 5th, probably as people are watching this, Ludo Naricon is happening. So go check that out. It is a very lovely Steam adjacent event where you can play all kinds of demos. They highlight all kinds of amazing indies and usually kind of narrative heavy games as well. I think I have a game demo sent to me. It's funny because sometimes when they send you demos of things, they don't tell you exactly what it's related to. They're just like, here's, like, trying to make you feel like, oh, this preview is just for you, but it's usually not. So I'm interested in talking about something I've been playing, probably connected to this, but we'll see. We also, next week, like less than a week from now,
It's very weird.
is PAX East. That's starting May 8th through May 11th.
I was chatting with Kyle
Good luck, soldiers.
and Becca.
You got this.
Janet's the mic of this event where she'll be left out.
Yeah.
Well, we'll take a picture with a picture.
Take a picture, traditional.
It is tradition.
I was chatting with Kyle and Becca earlier about this. It's weird that like it's already happening, but also awkward because it would have already happened like 2 months ago usually.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I
one of
think
those
that's why my
nebulous-
brain, because I'm like, PAX East has perpetually been 2 weeks away for me.
Yeah.
And it's since GDC when it was supposed to happen or previously happened. So I feel like my brain has been very weird around PAX East.
Yeah.
And I feel very unprepared, but it'll all turn out great.
It also doesn't help that like we're all getting like SGF emails at the same
Yes,
time and
at
trying
the
to like
same
sort
time.
that stuff out.
I'm literally
lot.
going back and forth between like, okay, you're talking about May, and they're all in the same kind of time period. So it's like
Yeah.
the 9th. Which 9th? Is it the May 9th or the June 9th? So I'm really careful about all of that. I've been on vacation. It was lovely. Thank you all for asking. They did ask. It was fine.
Damn.
Waited until the podcast to call it
Yeah,
out.
like, come back.
I appreciate the long game. I mean, we did
Yeah.
kind of have to grief you from afar because you love
Mhm.
to like dip your toe into working when you're not supposed to be working. And I think
Mhm.
I'm proud of how much shit we gave you over that. I
Yeah.
think it was
Janet
needed.
was really good at it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
Um,
standing on that throat like I was vicious.
Like, that's
But I hope
weird.
you got some
Jill's
rest.
talking.
Yeah.
I did. I got lots of rest just to keep up with everything. I did continue scheduling my PAX East schedule. And it's so funny because like I'm in a group with a bunch of people who I know are going. And they're all talking about their appointments and they're talking about, sub 10. And I'm like, oh, per day? And they're like, no, like total. I'm like, oh, actually, and I said how many I have, and it's literally twice as much as the next furthest, like closest to me. I'm like, maybe I'm not doing this right. Maybe I should sleep more.
Pulling up my
So-
calendar, I have 3 appointments for the entire goddamn weekend. I ain't about running around like a maniac appointment to appointment anymore.
Yeah.
I'll wander, I'll peruse,
Mhm.
I may even gallivant, you know? We'll see what
Some
catches my eye.
gaming with your eyes. It can
Yep,
go a long
Gaming
way.
with
I
your
love it.
eyes.
Yep.
Dude, last PAX East, you know how many video games I played? None. It was great.
Let's send that as a clip to like the PAX organizers.
Nah, Carter,
Um,
you're cool. I love you.
Yeah, we love all of you. You guys are doing great. But yeah, no, it's next week. It's going to be really exciting. So we're probably not going to have a any council for anybody who is worried about that. And just to get now that it's on my brain, I've been invited to something. I had to cut my PAX a little short, and I've been invited to something that following week as well. I'm not sure I can talk about it yet. So I'm going to be gone for a long time, doing a lot of cool things that I hope I can like share with everybody. Everybody on this
Nice.
record session is now like, what is Jill doing? I'll let you know when I can.
This is full
Nice
surprises
to know.
today.
I know.
I know. I come
A-
back from
A
vacation.
little bit of shade, a little bit of secrets. Like it's like you're so mysterious back from
I know.
vacation.
This is what happens when Jill gets rest. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, she's
Wow.
too powerful.
know.
I'm actually
The-
scared.
in here. I need
Nice to
let
know
it
that
out.
you'll cut time short from your friends to do
Yeah.
other things. You know.
100%. Anybody watching who's a PR or anything who's organizing something fun. But speaking of friends, perhaps dying a little bit inside,
What?
6-1 Indie Showcase is coming up as well, May 22nd. And everyone, this is not something I've just come up with. In the doc, Mike has put it's upsetting how often he uses this GIF to tell us how he's doing, of a poor Kermit just leaping off a tall building at this point. So how are you feeling, Mike? How's the showcase going?
I'm genuinely fine. It's the stuff that's not showcase related that's like a lot. So it's just like balancing everything has been a lot and overwhelming. But all good. We watched the full cut of it this morning. Got to pop in like a couple revisions on trailers, but should have the final cut today. And then I'm going to do audio, not tonight or tomorrow because I'm going to concerts, but then Friday, finish it up. And then that's it. We're trying to organize like a friends and family screening at PAX so people can watch early. Yeah,
I really
it's a good
want it to
time.
be
Cool
a
games.
jammies. I want it to be a jammy party.
Yeah,
The
it needs
jammies
to be
party.
a slumber party style,
Yeah.
like themed, you know?
Like I will personally pay for like themed.
I
footy
refuse to
pajamas.
let you pay for anything.
No, my money I will throw at this. It would be so much fun. Come on, that's
You know what,
6-1 indie.
Jill,
We'll figure it out.
If it
Would
makes you feel
Steve
better,
pajama?
I'll give you my Venmo. You know, you can give if you're looking to give some money
There
away. We'll cut the gift in half, and I'll just take the lion's share.
But yeah, no, all good. I think I know I say this every year, but I think it's our strongest one yet, especially on a production side because I'm not editing it and a comparable editor is actually doing it. Shout out Mike Clancy.
Mike Clancy is amazing, but Mike,
Yo,
they've
like-
always been well edited.
Sure, but it's clear that a non-video
Mike.
editor did the 5 ones, the 5 ones. Jesus, the previous 5. That's how mentally I'm doing. Jesus Christ. And yeah, it's just on another level. There's also a secret thing tied to this that I haven't told any of you about. That's also been in the works. So that's
Oh
also
my
been.
God.
on
Everyone has
Policy
secrets. Janet, do you have a secret?
Yeah, Janet,
No,
what's your secret?
I'm laying it all out on the line for this podcast.
Janet. Admit to a crime that from your past.
No,
Admit to a crime
Statute
right
of
now.
limitations.
I don't know. I don't trust you, Mike.
What Claire's have you stolen from?
You know, literally, I was started thinking about. Did start thinking about Claire's.
See?
I did start thinking about Claire. I don't know. You know, when you point one finger, 3 point back at you. So, what Claire's have you stolen from, Mike?
Yeah, Mike, come on.
I have
now.
been kicked out of a Claire's for potentially stealing an earring.
potentially.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
I was playing with the little back thing, and the guy was like, "I see what you're doing." I was like, "I don't want these butterfly dangling earrings, sir. I'll just leave. It's okay."
Speaking of There is
Anyways, May
actually a really good
22nd.
segue into this. Summer Game Fest, which Mike has never stolen anything from, is happening June 6th, I think, is the kickoff. And then Playdays is running the few days after that. But more importantly, Wholesome Direct is happening on June 7th. Yay, Jenny!
Yay!
Oh,
We officially announced. I'm so excited. It's actually happening again.
Nice.
Yeah.
it's always good to like look at the socials and then just see Jenny's face pop up, you know? And it's like, oh, that's Jenny, and I'm so proud. She's doing great.
Thank you. Yeah, super excited for this year.
Oh,
Go
she's
buy
got
a Wholesome
secrets.
shirt.
Oh yeah, and we announced we actually have merch now, like official. Usually our merch is only around our showcases to fundraise for things, but we've gotten this question so much over the years, and finally we have our own shop that's like open year round. So
Yeah.
pretty
Nice.
cool. Yeah, we have a shirt already there. We've got
They're
other
very
stuff coming
cute.
in. Yeah, so very excited for that.
Mm-hmm.
Jenny, where can I purchase a t-shirt?
Yeah.
If you go to wholesomegames.com,
Oh my God, I love that website.
all
It's
you
great.
need to pick up a shirt and sign up for the newsletter and learn all
Wow.
about Wholesome Games.
I think I'm
This
going to sign up for that
segment's
newsletter again.
Not sponsored by Wholesome
Not
Games.
sponsored by Wholesome or Mike. But no, it really is one of the best events of the summer sort of season.
Thank you.
So please put that out on your calendar. That's June 7th. Speaking of things happening in June, we're not done. It's going. It's going to continue. Tribeca Games just announced their indie lineup. And it's not specifically an indie show, but it is always indies. And I'm very interested in that. But
Mhm.
they are June 14th to 15th. You have to be in New York to go and play them. It is not a virtual thing, which like makes me so upset. So I'm like, I cannot fly to New York. I'm gonna be dead at the end of Summer Game Fest. But we have some amazing games, like always. I believe this is about like third, fourth year of the Tribeca
Since
games.
lockdown.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh dang. Time has no meaning.
Yeah.
So, highlights for me including Cairn, Possessors, Death Howl, and Mixtape. What are you looking at, Mike?
Sorry, I thought I just got called out for highlighting something in the doc. I got
No,
really
I mean,
nervous
I was
for you
looking-
yelling at me.
I was looking at the fact you were highlighting, but I wanted to like shout, like, what are you excited about, Mike?
Sure. I was
It
just
did
too,
have an
I was too
ominous
lazy.
vibe to it.
I was too lazy to type the words sleep awake because I wanted to make sure that I got the developer right. Eyes Out. Of course, this is one of the Blumhouse joints that was announced during SGF last year. I forgot developer, like the pedigree there, but the Nine Inch Nails guitarist is involved with this project. I'm all about that.
Okay.
It looks weird
Oh,
and
that's
trippy
cool.
and just like, yeah, it just looks so messed up. I think it's a former Spec Ops The Line developer as well. I think that's
Okay.
what the pedigree is. I don't know, but weird psychological first-person horror game. I really enjoy what Blumhouse is doing so far.
Yeah.
Granted, we only gotten Fear the Spotlight, but based on this first round sizzle that we saw last year, I'm just really excited for all the stuff that we're doing or that they're doing. Because when they announced this thing, I was really expecting just all the Five Nights at Freddy's games and a
Yeah.
Megan adaptation, like stuff like that. So it's been really refreshing.
Jenny, what are you looking at?
Ooh, I'm looking at Mio Memories in Orbit. It's this beautiful looking Metroidvania. You're exploring this like technological arc. Machines have gone rogue. I think you're uncovering secrets. I don't know. It just looks beautiful. It's by the publishers Focus Entertainment, and the project studio is French, so I'm going to try my best. But it's, I think, Deux Diximes, possibly. But look up Mio. You can read it for yourself. I'm also looking forward to Take Us North. Seems to be a very narrative-focused game inspired by real-world stories, and it follows folks who are migrants and asylum seekers who are crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. So I'm a sucker for like real stories told through video games like this, and the studio is Anima Interactive. So those are the two that really caught my eye.
And Janet, looks like you've got a pickup here as well.
Yeah, I want to shout out Dispatch. You may recognize this from, I believe it was first shown off during SGF Live last year. So definitely tune into the live show, which is, visible to the public at least. And yeah, it's like a workplace comedy, but it's superheroes in this context, which I think is just kind of a fun angle. I'm a big fan of stuff that takes sort of like a familiar genre trope or setting and sort of looks at the mundane. Like I love the stranging of the mundane. It's part of why I'm drawn to like workplace settings in games like, if we look on the AAA AA side, like Control and things like that. Like I like the sort of othering of familiar spaces. So I think this could be really cool. It also has like a pretty stacked voice cast, including, names like Aaron Paul and Laura Bailey. Again, doesn't necessarily mean now it's guaranteed to be great, but it's definitely an additional eye catch to what already looks like an intriguing idea.
Yep. And again, you need to be in person to go check those out, but very exciting.
We'll sense the games,
Yeah, we'll feel them. Osmosis.
I think
eventually.
too on the indie front of games showing up in spaces, even without being able to like go hands on, seeing a title that you're excited for pop up in these, for me, it's always kind of heartening to be like, okay, not only are they still working on it, but like they're trucking along, and maybe we will, it gets you kind of closer and closer to a release date, like seeing just sort of an active presence in garnering an audience. So even if you can't play them, it's like, hey, I see you and I notice you and you're still there. And that's cool because I'm looking forward to when it comes out.
Yes. And if that wasn't enough, between Summer Game Fest and Tribeca Games is the Steam Next Fest, which is June 9th through the 16th. So basically, if you're an indie fan, the next couple of months are booked. You are looking at things to be excited about, and it's going to be a wild time.
And not to mention, it's not announced, or the date's not announced yet, but the mix usually happens, and
Yeah.
other things.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I
Probably
think the mix
Devolver,
actually,
probably Day of the Devs.
Probably we've got like all things happening.
I'm trying to find it really quickly if anyone else can. How about the mix for, I know during the SGF time does have a date in Los Angeles, which I'm trying to sort of find. It's always like one extra click away than I think it's going to be. So I will be struggling with that for a few moments. If you want to keep going.
Let's look at hold on while she's looking.
It says
Look at this
June
picture I found of Janet. It's amazing.
It says
cute.
June 3rd through 6th, 2025, online and on site.
Cool.
Okay, there we go.
So that's the mix.
Oh man. Well, that could be the end of the show. There's just so much going on, but it's not, because we've got Janet
raising her hand.
I found the actual for the in-person. It is June 6th, 2025, 5 p.m. PST at the Grammy Museum. And again, there's like industry passes, there's press passes. I'm not sure offhand what or if they're, as far as like fan, if you're just, usually that stuff's like also open, but I'm not sure if there's like a ticketing system or anything like that. But if you're interested, look into it. And also, I think it's a great opportunity too for if you are sort of in a more beginner phase of the industry. I frankly have found the Mix's credentialing system to be like fairly generous. You definitely don't need to have like massive cloud or a massive platform. Like if you are out here working in the space and you're interested in attending the event, I encourage you to register, because you may be surprised on even if you think you can't get in. If you are doing the work, chances are you will be credentialed to get to attend, and it's a really fun event.
Yeah, they did the Grammy Museum last year or the year before.
Was that the Grammy Museum?
Yes.
It was the Grammy Museum, yeah. It's like kind of on a rooftop sort of.
It's
yeah.
It's
a great
not the
setup.
roof, but it's like high up, open air. It's the classic. LA is famous for like we're inside, but we want to feel like we're outside. That's like how the whole city is built, which I love. I love an inside outside, so it has that too.
And it's always a fun time. So go check those out.
Sorry,
Janet,
that was June 6th.
That was June.
Yeah, that is June 6th.
Working out the calendar.
Yeah, if you can change
Get it all on there.
Any industry people who are coming for SGF, I also obviously encourage y'all to come through. But of course, some people's flights are tighter than others. If you can make space for that, I think it's a fun one for sure.
Yep. Janet, while you're getting your voice warmed up, you've got all of it ready to go. You sent this one over to me. Indie dev pulled game from Xbox in solidarity with BDS. So do you want to take over and tell me what's going on?
Yeah, this reporting comes from Nathan Grayson over at Aftermath, which shout to Aftermath, worker-owned site.
Shout
They
out.
do a lot of great reporting there, and also some like fun, just general opinion pieces as well. So it's got a bit of everything if you're interested in, following games and checking out games media stuff, especially independently owned. But yeah, the title, as you read, is Indie Dev Who Pulled Game from Xbox in Solidarity with Palestinian-led BDS hopes others will do the same. So what this piece is, which I encourage you to check it out, it just includes additional sort of like back and forth conversation, additional commentary from the developer that this story kind of came from. The developer posted a public statement. To first zoom out for a second, because you might not be familiar with what the BDS movement is, but it stands for Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions. You can go to bdsmovement.net to learn more about what this movement is, which I will read just the quick sentence overview of how they describe it. Again, BDS is a Palestinian-led movement for freedom, justice, and equality. BDS upholds the simple principle that Palestinians are entitled to the same rights as the rest of humanity. So again, if chances are, if you were listening to the show, that you're a bit tuned in what was going on Israel-Palestine. And this is an organization that is out there sort of creating collective movement in support of Palestinians through looking at different, they do a number of things, but one thing is looking at different companies where they might support or not support this genocide and kind of trying to align your dollar with where your morals align. Like that's the whole idea of sort of this movement, and it's the 3-tier: boycott, divestment, and sanctions, and looking at these different ones. So the one that we'll be discussing is in the boycott realm of the BDS movement. So recently, Microsoft has been added to its list of priority targets. This is due to their connections with the Israeli military via Azure Cloud, which is an AI services. So like these are services that are very much directly used in like the military component. So obviously, you can use your own judgment, make your own calls for different levels of affiliations with, the military and with, harming other communities, but this is a very like direct sort of use of these services. It is not just like, you're powering a phone someone's using. It's like your technology is directly being used to like do missile strikes, is essentially kind of the sticking point here on why Microsoft has been named. As you might know, Microsoft, they own Xbox. So what does that mean for Xbox, right? So this is why like within the BDS movement and them addressing Xbox, that includes Xbox games like Microsoft Studios, Game Pass, individual games, consoles, peripherals. Obviously, this is, once I'm done with the opening spiel, I'd love to hear from other people on how they've been reacting to Xbox being named in this and how that might impact or not impact coverage. I know for me personally, I'm still playing Microsoft games. It is not out of not having solidarity for the BDS movement and being pro-Palestine, but I'm kind of just in that zone of still covering games, but kind of couching as needed about it. But because I'm still covering, I don't always bring it up in every single piece of content I do. Which I think, I forget if Aftermath does this, but there's also been some reporting as well written on like the games media side of like, how are we interacting with this and like what might our responsibilities be? So that's like a whole conversation as well. But in that, of course, there's multiple sides to this coin. There's us as purchasers, but there's also the developers who have games on these platforms. So again, to bring it back to the article, this is a quote from the piece. It says, now in show of solidarity, indie label Ice Water Games has removed one of its projects, open world tactics RPG Tenderfoot Tactics, from the Xbox store. The collectively run games label explained its rationale in a statement yesterday, which reads, quote, the Tenderfoot Tactics team decided to remove our game from sale on Xbox in solidarity with the Palestinian-led boycott, divestment, and sanctions campaign, which added Xbox to their priority boycott list earlier this month. We hope that Microsoft will listen to the voices of their workers and customers and stop all the business with the criminal Israeli military, which we watched conduct an open genocide in Gaza over the last 18 months. And then the additional like parts of the article are just kind of the developer talking more about their circumstance, talking about how much they care about the project, but also acknowledging that they have other, revenue streams that are available where they feel like they're in a good position to be able to do this, but it's also something that is really important to them. one of the developers is part of a Seattle-based group called Boycott War Profiteers, so, and then kind of Microsoft has big ties like in being located in Seattle, so it's kind of a whole personal and layered decision that this team has kind of made, and they sort of talk a little bit deeper about what it means and hoping others follow suit and all of that. So I just thought I wanted to bring this to the table because I thought it was interesting to be able to get like that indie perspective specifically, especially in the context of so many fans. I feel like often talk about wanting to support indie developers and this feeling. I'm sure many listeners who are pro-Palestine are feeling that push-pull of like, well, I want to support this great project that was like maybe funded by Microsoft or is on their platform, but I also want to show solidarity, but what can I do in these different situations? We talk about platforms that are good for indies and how maybe, Game Pass allows for more people to try stuff. So we're at this interesting crossroads where there's so much like intersectionality of beliefs and desires coming to the table. And it's definitely a complicated issue in that regard, but yeah, wanted to shout that out. And have us, keep an eye out for how this impacts the indie scene, how other indie developers, might move, and how that might end up shifting, how you listening might go about consuming indies in the near future or in the future. Because, I'm not, spoilers, Microsoft doesn't seem to be changing anything. They've also had a lot of, they've had like workers like protests like in the middle of meetings and things. So again, definitely encourage you to seek out more content on like, what is Microsoft's affiliation to the Israeli military, and what are some of the pushback they've been getting even internally at the company as well?
Okay.
Word.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Janet. Anybody else want to shout anything out before I move over to topic of the show?
It's kudos to the devs, and like Janet mentioned, it was referenced in the article. I'm glad they have multiple revenue streams in order to have the flexibility to do this, because it's very important to kind of make a stance. It's important. Before we move on, I do have to leave.
Oh,
okay.
So goodbye.
Jenny,
See you
do you
next
want to
time.
say one last thing before he goes?
Keep cat.
Cat.
No, I think mostly just it's one of those things where I know I have been looking at this and it genuinely has impacted my consumption of Microsoft products personally, but I know that that's not something that everyone is able to do, or, like if you're at work and your work is using this Microsoft suite, like you're not necessarily gonna be able to boycott something like that when you're at work. And so I think the important thing to consider as well, like if you can in your means do something like what the Tenderfoot Tactics folks did, I'd say work within your means, but also if your means don't make you able to do something like this, like there's plenty of other ways that you can show your support for people in Gaza. So I think like one thing is when we talk about sort of here's what you can do and here's the BDS movement, it's really important. It can have an impact, but I think also it's important to realize like everyone has to work, like stretch yourself, maybe like find ways to be a little uncomfortable. I think that's part of the point, is there is going to be discomfort, but within the ability for you to also exist. So yeah, I don't know. It is a complex issue, and I appreciate you bringing this up, Janet.
Yeah. It's important to talk about this sort of thing at the very least, especially for people like us that have platforms, in order to shine lights on this. Really, really appreciate Aftermath and the fact that they are totally kind of independent, and to dive into this and be able to bring it up. Again, that was Nathan Grayson at Aftermath. I'll link the article down below so y'all can go and support the people who are supporting others. But before we move over to topic of the show, we're going to say goodbye to Mike.
Bye, Mike.
Bye.
Bye. Claire Obscure, good video game.
Woo.
Okay, goodbye. Oh wait, I could just leave. I could just leave. Goodbye.
You just...
Leave.
That was an
moving.
excellent exit. Did we put his face back on here just so everybody can see? In case you were missing Mike, there you go. It's been a while since we've started this new setup, and I've just realized I can put people's faces in the backgrounds. So I've started getting everybody's pictures out there, just so you know. That's what I've been interested in. I've lost my doc. Okay, topic of the show. Let's talk genre, everybody. This was something that popped into my head back before I went on vacation, from an article at PC Gamer by Lauren Morton, called "The Stardew Valley-like genre desperately needs a real name." There are elements of this that I don't agree with. There are elements of this that I super agree with. But I wanted to use it as a launching pad to talk about genre. Is genre a useful tool? How many genres are too many? Why are some not taken seriously? And all things genre. So let's talk about that. First of all, did everybody get a chance to read this particular article? Because it seemed like they were really kind of referencing Fields of Mystria was really perhaps the launching point for them to talk about this. But the basic idea is just they don't think that cozy farm games have no real good genre moniker to go along with them. And I forget what they landed on as their. Oh, they wanted to call it 4X Games. That's right. I remember this. Because they wanted it to stand for Explore, Expand, Exploit, and Exterminate as like a genre, to be able to say like these are games that usually involve these sorts of things. But no, 4F for farm, forage,
but
fishing,
yeah.
friendship.
But that kind of is pulling on the
It's
four,
drawing
Four
the other
X.
fours.
On the
It's a
4X.
4 like farming, foraging, fishing, and also friendship. Yeah, / romance. Which that part isn't enough, but you can when you put the slash in there, the friendship can carry the romance part.
Yeah. So I love the idea of coming up with a kind of universal, all-encompassing thing. I don't know if I love 4F games just on the surface of like it doesn't capture the sort of like whimsy of these games. It sounds very clinical, and that's my main perhaps block to calling them like, oh yeah, that's great. I'll call them 4F games from now on. But it does, I think, get to a bigger issue for me on trying to make genres super inclusive and like defined in a way, leading to my first question, my first thought on this topic. Are genres good? Is it good to have genres? To what extent do they act as easy information versus just word salad? And I think about this a lot, and I thought about this a lot back at Game Informer because we had a lot of arguments, and I wanted to say discussions, but they were arguments about what genres meant. Because I always win when it comes to indies. Like I very rarely lost an argument. The arguments about genres, first of all, in your basic genres, they're bad. They're just not good. Like I'm already, you already know what I think about this. I haven't even tried to like couch it.
You're anti-genre?
Neutrally. I'm kind of anti-genre because it's just like, okay, what's an action game? Explain to me. It's got action in it. The one that I remember getting very much into at Game Informer was adventure games. Because y'all, if you're watching this right now, think to yourself for a second, what is an adventure game and what is the legacy there?
Left to right.
Yeah. I mean,
among
they
other
do
things,
sometimes.
that's a big part.
Because we had to do the thing we were doing at the time at Game Informer was a bunch of lists that were like best of the genre to play right now kind of games. So in order to do that, we had to narrow down what genre each game was. And as you get more and more into like, what is this, especially with indie games that have a lot of genres included, like what counts as especially like adventure game, which for anybody who doesn't know is sort of a nebulous, like It doesn't involve. It's not enough action to be action. It's not enough like gameplay to be anything else. It's just sort of like a game that exists and is usually narrative heavy, but also not like, see, there's no good definition for an
See,
adventure.
and what's so wild is that I remember very early when coming into the industry, I had never heard of the genre adventure game.
Mhm.
And so in my head, as a fresh person coming in starting to work on games, I heard adventure game and I was like, oh, a game where you go on an adventure. Isn't
Yeah.
literally every game an adventure game? Kind of. And it was the most wild experience because I got this nearly like 40-minute rant from this guy who was like basically talking about how point and click adventure is like the core of adventure games, and that's when you should absolutely use the term adventure game. But beyond like the point and click adventure, he was like, I won't take it. And so
Right.
yeah, that
My
was one of my
major
first
argument
experiences with
Yeah,
that.
my major argument during that time was to include Sable as an adventure game
Mm,
instead of an action adventure. And it's like, first of all, we can't just
Mm.
throw action adventure in there like it's something.
mhm.
I think the other one that really bothers me is tabletop or RPG as a genre for gaming, because the original point, as far as I can tell, for gaming legacy for the RPG genre is it stands for role playing game, but it's not a game in which you role play. Like, it is a game in which there are stats that are somewhat like a
Yeah.
D&D game. That's where role playing genre it comes in. And I'm just like, that
There
makes
definitely
no
are
sense.
a lot of RPGs where you're not role playing because like
Mhm.
or games that I think once RPG elements reared its head, stuff started to get a little bit wild because
Mhm.
Mhm.
and that's why it's so interesting like with RPGs specifically. I personally self-describe myself as someone that is starting to play more RPGs but doesn't have a big history with RPGs because most of the RPGs I played are just like games that have RPG elements or
Yeah.
games that like
Have
to-
stats
I
to
was
them.
yes, like in my fiance, we were talking about this like RPG thing because I haven't really played much of any of the Fallout games, so I don't really count those. I would consider that to be very much like traditional RPG. And his thing was like, did you have to make your character? Because like when I play Horizon, when I put down my indies and I go to the AAA side and dip my toe in Horizon, some people would say it's an RPG, but I'm not like everyone's Aloy in that game. You know, I'm not.
Mhm.
It's not the same. It's not like this authored kind of thing. I will say, Jill, Steam has your back. Genre for Sable, adventure,
Mm.
indie, an RPG. Is it an RPG? I didn't play much of Sable.
No,
I was gonna say I would not have put
it's
RPG on Steam.
yeah.
They just Steam doesn't know what they're talking about.
Yeah,
You know, we all
Steam
know.
does
Well,
a
except
lot
for the
of
part
things.
that agreed with Jill. That part was legit.
Mhm. Well, and it's interesting because Steam uses tags, which are kind of genres, but also not always genres. So Steam
Right.
tags are also just like if you were looking at the tags, were you looking
No,
at
I looked
tags
at-
or
I looked
genre?
at- I looked at
a genre.
genre.
Okay, cool. Because I'm like,
Yeah.
sometimes people look at tags and I'm like, nope, it's not the same thing.
The tags
Okay.
will be like anything. They'll be like fun vibes.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
all right, yeah. Sounds-
Okay,
which
cool.
I think the tags they have their place, but they definitely are
Mhm.
different than genre. Which is funny because in the Steam space, indie ends up being a marker of genre just by means of I think for filtration purposes more than I
Mhm.
think anything
It's
else.
funny because like I think in that first question that you asked, Jill, it's like, what do you think about genre? I think there's a part of me that wished we could live in a post-genre world. Like there's a part of me that wishes that, but we also live in a society and there has to be a way for us to like
She
talk
said
to
it.
each other about games.
Yes.
Go.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm
it's like
super pro genre.
Yeah.
Like because I am a little compartmentalization weasel. I mean, I still do
Mhm.
review scores on my site, which Jill, you do too. So we can
I
talk
do,
about that
yep.
some other time. A lot of people are like, review scores are the death of like pure criticism. And I'm like, I think it's
not.
fun to be able to scroll to the bottom and see like what bucket do I put the game in. And yes, it is
Yeah.
inherently reductionist. But I think when people talk about reducing things, we forget that like reduction is often how we distill meaning.
Mhm.
Like so much of, you know, when you say I love you to someone, that's reductionism. it means so much and it means different things to different people. But it doesn't mean that the word doesn't have meaning to it. It just means that multiple meanings can be ascribed and that there's more to explore there. They have to look at it in the context. And I think genre is the same way. Like there's power in labels and besides the practical sense of what next fest does my game go into? Because there's also a little bit of that. It's also part of, you know, people who like genres might like certain mechanics in a game and it helps them like find more that are like that. But yeah, we're always doing that. And I think even if you're anti-genre or anti-labels, like you're still labeling things, at least in your mind, because it's just it's how we like filter the world just as human beings.
Because it is very tough especially when you're on a format like this, where you only have so much time to impart why a game is special to someone. You kind of have to like, okay, so it's this, this, or this.
Yeah.
And it's much easier than trying to just describe the entire game for a half an hour blog. I actually went on the Game Informer website, which is back up and lovely to see, to check out my old, this was written in 2022. So I would just want to read you the intro to what I eventually came to describe in an adventure game. Are you ready, Jenny? Because I'm
ready,
really amazed.
I was shocked when that guy ranted at me, so I'm ready to learn.
The first sentence, even, Jenny, we have the same mind. Okay, so it says, far from describing a game with adventure in it, because that would include a lot of games, the adventure genre is loosely defined as one that emphasizes narrative and exploration over action, which may also rely on light puzzle mechanics. In other words, a game that doesn't have enough simulation to be a sim, action to be an action title, puzzle solving to be a puzzle game, and you get the idea. Despite the nebulous classification, games in this genre are unambiguously incredible experiences. Continuing. So, yeah, it's really one of those genres that is one of the hardest to describe, but it's like, I feel that way about a lot, even like the action genre is like, you just put it in here because it's action. That doesn't tell me anything. Like a lot of the time you have like 3D action. Like my literal thing here, we'll get into. I have so many thoughts about genre and I haven't been able to like talk to anybody about them. I've just been sitting in my room like stewing.
I have so many dreams. One of the dreams that I have is to make a like a video game dictionary of terminology, but another one of mine is to do genre as well, because I think and you're never going to solve it. And I think that's what's fun about it. Like it's, you know, how we talk shapes the way we think and vice versa. And I think so often there's that frustration of like, oh, stop trying to make this new genre happen or whatever. But it's like, we have to have ways to like, how do we make meaning out of what we're seeing unfold? And I think sometimes we're successful in that. And sometimes we're a little bit like, what if we slap like and a little dash? And now it's genre. And it's like, that does work better than you would think, but it's probably not the best permanent fix. It's kind of the duct tape over the pipe of genre a little bit.
Let's talk about that.
This like
game like as a genre. This, I think you were talking, Janet, very specifically about a genre that you didn't like. So if we were talking about, say, a Tunic like versus a Metroidvania. Oh, I knew I was gonna get you. I'm so excited.
Like a would you rather for
what
like,
would you? Yeah, how would you
describe
these? How do you describe these games that knowledge is the way forward, like a Grun, or like a Tunic?
The Grun run,
the Grun run, the Tunic, even Blueprints to some degree.
I feel like this is like a test I didn't study for. Tunic is to them tossing that action adventure genre. I'd say it's more like Zelda. I wouldn't call it a Zelda-like, because I think that's giving Zelda a little bit too much credit for being like the harbinger of the genre. But I would say Tunic is more of a Zelda game, like a traditional, like old school Zelda game, than it is similar to Outer Wilds and Grun and these other titles. Even though there are a lot of secrets to unfold in Tunic, because you can on its face just like play it regular, I find. And I think they're all like puzzles in Zelda. It's just Zelda isn't as fancy schmancy. You know, you shoot an eye, you come back somewhere, you figure something out. They follow a similar, I think, structural trajectory. Grun is interesting. I mean, Grun I would say is an environmental puzzle game and a time loop game. But again, I guess if I need to put a genre on Grun, it's a rogue. Which one's the one that is where things carry over? I forget light and like.
Roguelite.
But
Yeah.
I'd put
Yeah.
it in one of those buckets, but I would add puzzle to that for sure.
Mhm.
And I would add environmental puzzle because I think that's a big distinguisher in the puzzle genre. Is it an environmental puzzle?
Mhm.
Is it I still don't have a good word for this, but like an direct puzzle, like like when I sit down and do Sudoku, that's a puzzle, but it's a way different puzzle than when I'm playing Grun or even when I'm playing, Blueprints or Lorelei. Like those are very. The Lorelei has a bit of that. Lorelei's like you walk up to a door and the door is Sudoku, so it's like it's kind of the same. It's a long walk to get to the same loop. But yeah, and I think that's often why you find in these discussions it is so often not enough to say genre, because if I just say, I think genre starts you there, but you have to fill in more. Because if I say that Grun is a rogue, which one is it? Light?
Roguelite.
Yeah.
Roguelite time loop game. I don't think when I see in my mind's eye and I picture that game forming, it's not the game that I want to appear fully. Like Grun isn't fully there. So to fill in the stuff, that's when I throw environmental puzzle in there as like a big piece. And then I have to like go in and explain probably more about the time loop. So I think those are the main tentpoles: environmental puzzle, roguelite.
I think what's interesting is, okay, for genres for games, because like we have books, we have movies, we have other media. I think what makes genres for games unique is that historically, typically, we are not focusing on like the sci-fi, the fantasy. Like we're not talking about the narrative of or the environment in which the game is taking place. We're talking about the
Game
mechanics.
flavor.
So I think that's also an interest, like something to keep in mind as we're describing games, because it is different than other media. And I think if you haven't really thought about genres for video games before, you might not have immediately clocked that. So I think that's really important. And then I think I was trying to take notes so I wouldn't lose my thought, but I didn't
You've
take
lost
what
it.
I did. Well, I lost what started this thought, but the idea of also the evolution of language and the evolution of genres is really interesting, because when games started, we had like literally we had the asteroids type, Space Invaders type, mazes, and like miscellaneous. Like we had very broad, yet at the same time very specific, because there were only like those kind of games. And I remember later on Nintendo, to have games published on Nintendo, they had like a bucket of 8 genres that they created, and that's what needed to happen. Like that's what you had to classify your game into to be able to like publish a Nintendo game or work with Nintendo. And so I think what's interesting too with the advent of indies is that because we have more people creating more varied experiences, we are being forced more quickly to find the language that makes sense for us to be able to describe these things, which is why it has been so clunky, because we're all kind of doing it in real time together, which is kind of cool, honestly.
Yeah. No, I want to touch on 2 things, and I want to try to remember them as I go through. But first, touching on the fact that genre in a video game is so much more is different than genre and other things. I was at GDC in the press kind of room, and someone was there who has like a radio show, older woman who's not at all really knowledgeable about video games or the world of video games. So just talking with her was a really interesting perspective to get. And then we talked about, she said something really strangely, it sounded very disparaging. Like they had like romance games down there, and all of us who were at the table were like, we love romance games. What are you talking about? And she's kind of disgusted in looking at us, and we're kind of disgusted in looking at her. And it kind of came down to understanding that she thinks of romance as like romance novels, like the Chest Fabio, sort of like that kind of game,
which we
like
also
Rested
have.
Boobily,
which we
like,
also
yeah.
have. Yes. But we would talk about that in a very different way than just saying like a game with romance, because like there's a lot of different genres. So we're like, no, we're talking about like what you might think of like as a rom-com kind of game with like romance elements to it.
We don't actually use even romance really as a game genre.
Right.
We talk about romance in games, like are characters romanceable? Now,
Yeah.
like,
Right.
is there romance?
Like the closest we get is like dating sim.
dating sim.
You're dating
Mhm.
sim, yeah.
So like that was such an interesting thing to realize. There's such a unique and specified language around just gaming genres in general, realizing we had such a strange, like, here's a person who's like speaks the same language, has the same culture, but absolutely had no idea, and we had no idea what she was talking about. And that was such a funny thing that highlights exactly what you were talking about. Genre is very specific to gaming. The second part of that being the game-like genre has developed a lot due to like indie gaming. Has anyone actually played Rogue? Anyone here?
No.
No.
It is so funny
No.
to me. I've definitely
I feel
had
like I'd
this
hate it.
conversation. I think I probably would too. I've had this conversation where people ask what roguelike means. They think about it instead of just using the term. And to explain that there is a game called Rogue. Because a lot of people think Souls-like is the thing that kind of started this off. It's like, no, there's a game that's like procedurally generated, that you lose all your progress when you die. It's called Rogue, and that's why we've started calling it Rogue-like. And now we've gone down this road of like, okay, Souls-like is a definitive like thing you can use professionally.
Mhm.
I don't think anyone's going to push back on. And now you're getting like,
Metroidvanias.
yeah. I want to talk about Metroidvania here because Game Informer very specifically will not let you use Metroidvania as a genre. It is against the like
What?
policy of
They fixed that though,
Wait.
yes? Let me message Kyle.
Yeah.
no.
Y'all still
Go
got
talk
this
to Kyle.
backwards
Ask him
policy.
because it's like super ingrained that is not a genre. Which immediately is one
That
of the
feels
things
like something Kyle would say. Now that
I
I think of
broke
it. Let me ask him.
contact so quickly when I left Game Informer, and it would be hard to go back. Because what is Metroid like? The argument I think is like, what does Metroidvania actually convey as a thing? But I wonder if that's like a generational thing, which is now again the evolution of language and games is sort of a counterculture, but now part of the like mainstream culture. Oh, Jenny. Like, there is such an interesting conversation about how genre also evolves with us as people. And since gaming is such a relatively new art form, that we're only now just getting multiple genres or generations of people playing games at the same time. And so we're having those kind of confrontations as well, like intergenerational, like this is what I called it back in the day, and this is what the kids are saying.
Yeah.
So I wonder if Metroidvania is a little bit like that because I wasn't really alive. Let's think about that for a second. When the original Metroids and Castlevanias were coming out. So I don't have that personal, like the term was introduced to me before some of the original games. So it makes 100% sense to me as a term, Metroidvania. I know what that means. Why would you need to say anything else?
Yeah.
But for people for whom that they have real personal histories with that game, those games, like there are perhaps better ways to talk about them. And do we have to think about that when we're trying to think about genre?
Well, and I think about the accessibility of a term like that, because even adventure game, which you would think is
Mhm.
straightforward, like people who aren't in games know what an adventure is, probably they know what that means. That term still has a different meaning when used in the genre of games. Metroidvania is a word that no one will have heard outside of games. And so if I went and asked my mom, like, do you like Metroidvania? She would have no idea what I was talking about. And so I think there is this interesting component of like some of these terms do create like you're in the know. Do you know the difference between a roguelike and a roguelite?
No.
Okay, so
I
you're
just
like
say
in the
rogue.
know. Yeah,
I'm
you
about-
just say rogue.
I'm outside looking
Yeah.
in like
And-
they
and
seem like they're having
so-
fun in there. I don't know.
And even like we have newer ones like the survivors like now. So like Vampire Survivors. If you don't
Yeah.
know what that is, what's the survivors like? you survive, I guess you could kind of guess it. But I think it's interesting too, where it sort of signifies, for better or worse, like your ability to be in this group and like know what's going on. Yeah, just kind of
Right.
a
It is also
interesting
really
point.
it's really so helpful for indies though, because indie is such a niche within a niche
Mhm.
anyway. So there is that element of like, if you don't know what a Survivors like is, if you don't know what the game Survivors is, like you're probably not in the indie like trenches anyway. But like you do want to be inclusive as much as possible, because Vampire Survivors is such a like good game for people who've never played games before to kind of get into the idea of what you're doing. But it's also, again, what you were talking about, Jenny, of indie games specifically pushing so much on the experience of gaming and changing that up and trying to come up with words. It's so much easier to say it's like Vampire Survivors, it's like Tunic, it's like um
Stardew Valley.
Stardew Valley. Yeah, absolutely. And then to go from there. Is that trend reductive? And we talked about that a little bit. Or is it more helpful than 3D action platformer with elements of procedural generation and relationship building with a side of card building? Like,
It sounds kind of fun, except for the
Yeah.
cards. I don't know about that part. I think the limitation of game dash like is how well people know that game, or at least that, or the genre itself. Like I think Metroidvania is the point. You don't have to have played Metroidvania, and you definitely don't have to have played Castlevania. Though I really like Castlevania actually. Is it Symphony of the Night that I was like? Whatever. There's a bunch of Portrait of Ruin. Like was one of my favorite Castlevanias, but you don't need it to know what a Metroidvania is, because you could have played Hollow Knight and like Ori and maybe like 2 other games, and you'll know what they're talking about, because even though I think someone with a more negative viewpoint on those games would say that they're like approximations of like the originals, I would argue they are, they're kind of also maybe sometimes building on those and maybe making better games sometimes. So that's the other thing too, where I think it's not just like, it's kind of like the you made it a hot rhyme, I made it a hot song, argument for like the hip hop heads out there. I think a lot of times we want to go back and have like this original source for sake of, well, actually, this was like the original thing. But it's not. Sometimes something gets bigger and it overtakes that. And I think we've already seen that with like Undertale versus Earthbound. People be like, oh, this game's like Undertale. And like, an old head will say, actually, your game's like Earthbound and Undertale's like Earthbound. It's like, yeah, but no one knows what you're talking about, old man. Like, that's the thing. And so it does change where things can be like superseded. The truth is, Earthbound, the more time passes, the kind of less the impact is still felt, but the source kind of gets lost. And I think it is fun to have those conversations of like, if you're really into games, to like learn more about the games that sort of spurred the games that continue to get made. But outside of that, that's just kind of the reality of progressing with time. Like at a certain point, like people aren't really going to be talking about Earthbound other than a fun fact, unless like they start making Earthbound again or something. Which, prove me wrong, Earthbound. The table is yours. People seem to really love that game, so shout out. But yeah, Undertale really ate Earthbound's lunch in that regard, which is another kind of one that gets put in that genre-like category.
I think we can also apply that logic to genres as well, because we just talked about, and we know you don't love it, but Metroidvania turning into Metroidbrania. You have to know first what Metroidvania means, and Metroid and Castlevania. So it's like it's a layer on top of a layer on top of a layer. But so, Janet, I want to make an argument for Metroidvania because
also I'm not unwinnable to Metroidvania. Yeah. I want to make that clear. This is not like the Tunic. Like, no, you can keep that in the trash. Like I don't want that. We don't need that. You're a Zelda game. You're a Zelda game. The end.
I love a game that requires knowledge as power. Literally, you as the player knowing something changes the way that you approach the game, that you continue on to be the game. So Metroidvania at least does something towards, is attempting to...
I lose 5 HP every time you say Metroidvania.
the name genre that will not be named does something towards trying to express that in a short form of saying like this is the kind of game that you will gain knowledge, and then once you have that knowledge, the game mechanics will change, or the way that you go about the game flow will change. I'm thinking very specifically of something Echoes, and I always forget it. I want to
Echoes
say
of the
like
Eye?
Echoes of the
No.
Eye. Yeah.
no, it's a
Echoes
new
of Wisdom?
Hold on, Echo Weaver.
Oh yeah. Okay.
It's going to be a bomb game, by the way.
That's not out yet, correct?
It
Just
is
so that
not
people
out yet.
listening
It's
can-
going to
okay.
be it's going to be really good. Echo Weaver by Moonlight Kids has an element, and I don't even want to spoil it, but like there's an element of like if you had known to do this earlier, you would be able to get past this level like super fast, and you wouldn't have to do the things that you did in order to get there. And it's a really cool, clever mechanic, not just in this game, but in all games, where like with Tunic, they're like careful if you're worried about spoilers for Tunic. There's teleporting, and you don't know that until you do the thing. There's saving games. There's upgrading your character, which you don't know until you know how to do that. Oh man, I love
That game
so
was
much.
good, yeah. That game was good. You know
That
what?
was a good game.
I still stand by Death's Door's combat. Boom. Tunic,
Death's Door's
Puzzle in
combat-
World. They
So
shake
good.
hands and they got like the best game of all time. But separate, they're just two games that are really good.
I think-
and I want them
yeah.
together.
It's so hard because they came out at the same time and they get combined. They get compared, but I don't think they should be compared because they're not this same game at all.
I know,
Like-
but when I look at the screenshot, they kind of look like the same game. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? I know I should be above that, but like, I'm
yeah,
not.
but that's what we're talking about here is like genre
Mm-hmm.
that is essentially just trying to impart like boom right off the bat, this is what kind of game that is. So I like the genre that will
Metroidvania,
not
you
be
can
named.
say it. No, it's okay.
Metroidvania, sorry, because like we were talking about when Blueprints came out, there was a big flurry of discussion about the fact that puzzle game is very, very limiting, and we don't have a lot of language to describe different puzzle games, like
Mhm.
The Witness versus Lorelei versus Blueprints
Versus Tetris.
yeah,
Mhm.
escape the room situations. Like we have
A
a
room
lot.
like, which is a game.
A room
That's,
like.
that's not a joke. That's a real game that people think is really good, which I want to play it. It's been on my
Yeah.
list forever.
But like they're
gosh.
very different games, and you do see them all described as a puzzle game. I'm not necessarily a huge puzzle person. Like I don't like jigsaw puzzles. I don't like Sudoku that much.
Oh, like real puzzle, like
Like, I
real
don't like
life,
real
like,
puzzles.
you know.
So like that's immediately what I think about when someone says like, "Oh, it's a puzzle game." So I'm like, "Is it though?" Like Blueprints, which I'm sure you guys talked about and we'll talk a little bit about. I've played hugely over the vacation. I'm like 80 hours into that game and it's still
Nice.
I have no idea where the rabbit hole ends. Like it's
Mhm.
wild. We'll talk about it. But like it's a puzzle game, but is it? It's a roguelike. It's got card deck elements to it. It's very much board game inspired. There's a really good board game I want all y'all to play. I'm gonna bring it. Summer Game Fest, we'll all be there. I'm gonna be
Sure,
like,
yeah.
everyone has
Oh,
to
yeah.
stop. We gotta play. But like it's so much fun. I think it's fun to have these discussions about what genre means, but if we have to have these discussions about the very basics of like what is like an adventure game, one of the very basic like buckets we put things into, then how useful are they versus just a word salad to be able to like say? Because a lot of the times I will go on the show and say like, oh, it's an action platform with elements of blah 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 blah, but most people won't get that until they've actually played the game themselves, and then they're like, oh, I get what this is now. But I don't know, is there a way for us not to do that?
I
Well,
feel
mean,
like. Oh, mine's pretty quick. I was gonna say,
Okay,
I
go
feel
ahead,
like
go ahead.
part of it is just knowing your audience, right? Like, I think a lot of what informs how I describe a game depends on who I'm talking to. And if I am talking to a gaming audience with a specific set of knowledge, if I'm talking to maybe a more casual audience that maybe dabbles in games but wouldn't know certain like esoteric titles or, references, I'll use different language. And I don't think there is like, it's all contextual. And so you kind of have to, at a certain point, just go with the flow a little bit and say, all right, I'm going to have to modify my language and how I am sharing this information based on who I'm talking to.
Yeah, for me, like on top of that, I think genre. I don't take that issue and say like that's because genre isn't informative. I just think that it's never going to deliver like the all of the information, which is like what makes that's the challenge and the fun of the job in a way, right? Where it's how we sit down and write a review, and you're like, how can I make you feel like you're playing this, you know what I'm seeing, and I'm pointing out things to you about it in a way that you feel, but you don't feel it until you read it from me, where you're like, that's what I was thinking, that's what I was feeling, which is always challenging without sounding like you're just the back of the game box being like, in this action adventure game, there were 8 biomes. I mean, you try to get that in there, but you need to like, obviously, input your opinion and things like that. But to me, genre is like taking a camera lens to something, and it's a way to like focus the picture. It's not the all of the picture though. So I feel like genre, maybe that's like the aperture, but I still need like the right shutter speed, the right like. I gotta be honest, I don't remember any more photography terms. But like whatever,
I was really
whatever
impressed.
else you
I was
need.
like, wow,
Thank you.
Janet.
Yeah, AP photo, shout out. But like it's putting the picture into focus. So to me, like that's kind of our job here to a degree, right? To the degree that we talk about what we've been playing and like, hey, by the way, this is what the game is. It's a action adventure platformer. You like kind of focus it a little bit more with puzzle elements. It's kind of reminiscent of these games. Like you sort of have, I think, a variety of tools to build understanding for what a game is, and you are just reaching into that, and like what genre is just one of those tools. I still think it's a useful tool, but I think it's easy to be frustrated by genre because you want it to have more than it can have in some ways. Now that being said, I do think there's some genres that do a better job than others. Again, adventure is kind of too like big to really be that meaningful. You do kind of need a supporting layer. But I think just because you need a supporting layer doesn't mean the genre itself is bad. I mean, I think horror is the number one like victim of that, right? You say it's a horror game, you sort of probably do have a picture in your mind, like but that's based on just my own background. Like you say horror, I'm like Resident Evil, and then then I throw away Resident Evil once I get the rest of the information, and maybe I pick a different game. I'm like, so it's like this one, and that one definitely requires more because it's more aligned with film and movies and TV, which is to say that in some way it's scary. Is it jump scare scary? Is it like existential crisis scary? Is it gross scary? Is it body horror? Is it like you can start to get all these other elements in there. But yeah, genre can only do so much. But I think if we're making genres, it's our job to try to make the best one we can. So
Yeah.
I'm ready to unpack the Metroidvania a bit. If I don't want to jump ahead, if you have other thoughts to sit with.
I have other thoughts to sit with. Speaking of horror games, I got a shout out from Gangru Games just like this morning. That sent me a link to their game called Besmirch, which is a survival horror farming sim set to come out sometime this year. And it was like immediately upon reading survival horror farming sim, I'm like, yep, I'm in 100%. I don't need to see this game. I know that this is going to be a cool genre. And this is not a very unusual genre. It looks like one we are getting a little more into the cozy creepy genre is becoming more and more of a thing, which made me think of a discussion I had back at GDC with a member of PR who asked me, who wanted to know from me specifically as an indie specific person, can indie games have too many genres or too much genre blending?
Yes.
Okay.
I think technically, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. The best kind of yes, a technical yes. I think I think if you add too much, it's kind of like making a smoothie, right? I think good combinations and surprising combinations can do a lot. but at a certain point, you kind of just made a weird colored, yucky thing, that ends up being unmeaningful. Even if it's true, I think, which is maybe a struggle for teams in PR and stuff. It's like if you give too much, it sounds like you don't really know what you're doing. And now I'm kind of scared because like you created uncertainty within me. And I'm like, I'm confused. And now I'm archiving this email. Like, I don't know what's going on here. But so yeah, I think that can be true. In at least a descriptor. There's obviously a lot of, I think, I didn't actually see it all the way through, but I know a bit about it. What was the freaking card Inscription? Inscription, you could I think could add a lot of genre tags to it that would make sense, especially for some of the things that happen in that game. But I think given this how long the thing is happening, it's like maybe it's not worth mentioning this genre thing. I think you also see that in like, games that have mini games, right? Like you wouldn't say that Final Fantasy Rebirth is a platformer just because maybe you jump at one point, It's like, okay, well, this is it's muddying the waters in a way that now I miss out on what your game is at its core because you wanted me to know too much about what it has to offer, I feel like. But Jenny, you had a similar
no, that's
yeah.
I'm like, I mean, technically, I think from a design standpoint, you don't want like I feel like it would muddy just the play experience of the game to like fit that much stuff in. I think the smoothie analogy was perfect. Sorry, my cat is also ready
I'm
for
loving this cat
dinner, and she is like really upset. But I think of Dave the Diver, for example, because that's one of those games that came out, 2 years ago now, 3, and I felt like every hour we had a new genre that got added into the pot. And at the end of the day, I wouldn't call, they had a stealth section. I would not call Dave the Diver a stealth game. It had a rhythm section. I wouldn't call Dave the Diver a rhythm game, even though I think it had like 2 or 3 rhythm sections technically. And so it's the point of the genre is, like you said, to distill sort of in its most simple form, what is the vast majority of the experience that you're going to have when you play this game? What is the sort of vast majority of the stuff you're going to get out of it, the actions you're going to do? And so, at least from my perspective, when I'm doing marketing, generally, I try not to do more than 3, because after that, it does get kind of like you're taking up a whole line just to introduce the thing at a certain point. And so you can always differentiate elements later over the genre, but I think it's important to be able to distinguish the two because like you said, games can have RPG elements, doesn't mean they're RPGs.
Right. But I also want to, I mean, y'all are totally right, and I think you're going more towards marketing and like how to talk about games, but also just for anyone who's making a game, if you're putting a lot of genres in there and it's worth being in there, that's the core of the experience, and go for it. I'm going to talk in a bit about in games we've been playing. Creepy Redneck Dinosaur.
That's
Mansion
the game
3.
I was literally thinking about. Even though I haven't played it yet, but I've been hearing the rumblings of
my god,
the surprises in that game.
So there were a lot of genres to that game which work all together. Strange Scaffold is so fantastic at this kind of genre blending, genre mixing, mashing. Like all of their games are wild and they have, I think, no matter how many genres you want to throw in there, they all have to have a through line and a purpose. As long as they are purposeful and the genres are kind of supporting and continuing each other, like, go for it. But don't throw things in there just because it's a buzzword, essentially.
Yeah, I'm like, as a producer, I'm like, this is a scope creep question. This is an editing down question. Yeah, I think it's possible to have many. Like, I would love to see folks push that because I think it does make for really interesting gameplay and you can tell some very different stories when you're blending these genres together. But yeah, like you said, it has to be mindful. And it's interesting because when like Creepy Redneck Dinosaur Mansion 3,
you got it.
When I think of it, I still think predominantly of the match 3 components. I'm still thinking predominantly of a specific genre that at least they've introduced in their marketing as like the core of what players are going to experience. So,
Janet. with threat of reducing your HP once more, have you had time to think about your stance on the Metroidvania?
Yeah, I think the Metroidvania, my issue with it, I do think we should probably come up with it would be nice to have a name for these games that are about finding key information and using that information to progress the game.
Yeah. If you
But
know,
I
you know.
think I think my issue with Metroidvania is I think it works, but only accidentally. I think it works the same way you could say these are orange porridge games, and if you put all those games in that list, it's like a rose by any other name would smell as sweet kind of situation. Like you could label those games anything, and if we keep all those games under that label, if you call them Pinky Winky games, and we just say this is a Pinky Winky genre, and you list these games, yeah, when I see those games, I'm going to say it's another Pinky Winky because it looks just like the other games. But it doesn't mean that the term is actually maybe like having a super meaningful I guess etymology to the word, right? Like we talk about etymology, it's the source of what makes a word. So it's like different sounds from different languages, especially in English. Like etymology is very messy and funky because English is very quite literally a bastardization of a lot of
Yeah.
languages. And
You
I think
beat up other languages in back alleys and steal parts. Yeah.
exactly, and that's all why we have so many
Mhm.
funky rules to like the English language, why it's so hard to learn. So shout out to all the people that have English as a second language. That's like the hardest language to learn. So shout out to that. But I think in genre, it gets maybe a little bit too muddy in that regard because I think with the Metroidvania, it feels like we took the word Metroid to get to the Metroidvania part, which is, you know, the structure, the core thing that makes the Metroidvania, I would say is you can't open like a certain door and you get like the blue key, or in this case of Metroid, you know, maybe you get a certain power up that allows you to go through here. And I kind of think back to, again, my colleague Kyle Hilliard, you know, Game Informer, MinMax, who often talks about like there are games that people try to say this is a Metroidvania, and he's like, is it a Metroidvania or is it just a well-designed game? Which I think in the case of Blueprints and Outer Wilds and these other titles, I don't feel like those are Metroidvanias. I think they're just well-designed games, and a well-designed game does have the structure of maybe you feeling like you get what you need right when you need it, and this idea of like progression that feels very synergistic. But I'm not going back, like, I guess in a way, you know, like I'm again making up kind of fake examples for Blueprints. It's like, I guess I go to the kitchen and now I have the blender and I can now use the blender, but it's not the same. There's so many other layers to that than there are in like a Metroidvania, where like Samus just has to find the door and it's blue and now she can open it because she has the blue gun, you know, again, kind of just using fake generic examples. And I that's the thing. I feel like we all liked how Metroidvania sounds, and we said Metroidvania, and it's like, yeah, that feels like you kind of feel, I think, a connection with it even if you hate it. And I think that's what makes it so like maybe this is the one, but I'm like, I don't know if it is yet.
What if the blue key is just knowledge? Like I get that knowledge that lets me through the door.
I don't know. I just don't feel the same way about it. I think because the order is, and you know, Metroidvania also has like a different order, but I don't know. I'm just not completely sold. Again, I think there's some good ideas there, but I think I'd have to examine it a bit closer. Like I think we all heard it and said that feels like it makes some sense and just wrote it down. But I think it just, even if the answer ends up being right, I think it's worth examining a little closer.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sold. I think we bought it too early, and I'm like, I don't think we read the terms of this contract. And we're
Indie
like, well,
devs,
it
we
sounds
need you to
good.
come up with something. Throw out your like, go to the chat or tell us in the comments below.
Also, I'm not
should we
gonna
call this
lie,
game?
it sounds kind of cheap. It sounds a little
Yeah,
bootleg.
I think
It's giving Canal
the
Street.
That's
problem
probably
for
No
the
me.
shades
problem.
it.
Yeah.
The girlies getting their Gucci bags on Canal Street. I'll be right there with you because I cannot buy those retail. I feel you, but it's giving bootleg. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a little bit nerd passcode. Like I know this because I've said the thing. I've said the thing and now I know the thing. So you know I know the thing. Instead of being just a term that describes. Jenny, what do you think?
I'm with Janet on this where I'm like, I think you hit the nail on the head where I'm like, it's weird because I have this affinity for it, but I think it's only because there's nothing better right now. But I also want something better because I think, yeah, I don't know. There's something about it that just doesn't sit right with me. Because also, I think it doesn't capture, like when I think of a knowledge-based knowledge building based puzzle game where you are using what you learn to like progress in the game, there's just a very different feeling than when I play a Metroidvania. And it's just like this weird gut feeling I have from like it's not conveying what I would want it to convey. And so I don't think I would ever use that phrase personally.
I think part of it, because Jill, you make a good argument with the like, well, isn't the knowledge the blue key? And I'm like, I guess, but I think the difference is in what we're calling a Metroidvania, you don't know that there's a door. That's the difference.
Yeah.
In Metroid, you know, like this area is blocked. I guess I'll have to come back later. But it's very rare to like, you know, explore in Outer Wilds or Blueprints. You know, a big thing we've talked about with Blueprints is that it's a puzzle game where you don't even know that you're passing by puzzles that you haven't solved because like you don't know even the knowledge to know that there's a puzzle in the room with you. That's not true of Metroid and Castlevania. It's a big old glowing door, and I think that's the difference. Like it's I think it's missing. Like Metroidvanias are so much about staring at an environment and wanting to explore more about it and knowing what you need to open and maybe even guessing like, I guess I need something to like jump higher. It'll probably be this, so I need something to be small. It might be this, and you're kind of playing with that as the player. While here you don't know the door exists, and that's also something that they're playing with as a player, and I think that piece is the missing piece that doesn't sit right.
Okay, I love it. We have a challenge. I don't know if we've come to any conclusion about genre, but we've had a lot of cool thoughts. I'm ready to jump over to games we've been playing since we are basically treading into that territory to begin with. So let's talk about games we've been playing.
I have a thing real quick. I did message Kyle Hilliard, which let me get his job right.
Fellow
he is Game Informer's magazine executive editor. And I said, hey, what's up with this band? Is this still a thing? He said, haha, I was not aware that band ever existed. So
wow. I'm gonna have to talk to you
guys. I don't know if you guys overlapped during your time there.
We did. Yeah. And
I don't know if he
really
was
certain he was involved in some conversations. Now I'm gonna have to talk to him.
If you have been victimized by Kyle Hilliard, you're entitled to financial compensation. Yeah, Kyle's giving like, I never did that to the parent who like treated you badly, and I never did that to you. I never said that like you like, couldn't open more than one cereal. What are you talking about? Yes, you did. Yes, you did. You'd always yell at me about it. And yeah, so this is something for you, Kyle, and maybe your therapist, Jill. Because yeah, this man, don't let this man gaslight you via the Slack to me. Yeah, I don't know,
Kyle.
So I'm sorry that happened to you, Jill. I'm sorry, but this is what he wrote back to me.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Everybody go support Game Informer. It's cool. Games we've been playing. Let's talk about it. Mike, in his audacity, has put down a couple of games, even though he says I'll definitely be gone by this point. But he says he's been playing Claire Obscura, Expedition 33. Damn. I thought it was so close.
Honestly, this is one of my faults. For weeks, I was calling this game Claire Obscura, and then I fixed my thing, and I wonder if I infected a lot of people with the fake name. So
I think all of us, it's just sort of a like, we all think that this is, what's the name of that? The thing where we all think.
Ooh, it's the Berenstein Bears. The Berenstein, yeah. Also, Game Informer, January 2024. They have a top 10 Metroidvanias to play right now. So
yeah, you'll go back to that time period.
Oh my god,
2022, 2024. You get a lot of those.
It's a good list, too. Not gonna lie, it's some good games.
It's good games. Go check it out.
Okay. All right. Collectively, you have some taste. Congratulations, Game Informer. I'll look up the Berenstein thing while you get into your game.
Jenny. Claire Obscure Expedition 33, which I said perfectly the first time around. How are you feeling about it?
Mandela effect.
The Mandela effect, yes.
Thank you.
I'm loving it. Honestly, it is. I was talking about it on a different show, and what really struck me was how quickly the stakes were established. I feel like in a lot of RPGs, the thing that I've been struggling with lately in particular is either I'm 10 hours in and I still don't know the stakes, or I'm, 10 hours in and I guess we got stakes, but I don't care. And so I think the biggest thing about Expedition 33 is the way that within the first like 30 minutes, you have the stakes established and you likely, like if you're down to like get into this game, you probably will have some form of caring for these characters immediately. I love RPGs. I love turn-based battles, and I really love it when they get a little bit actiony, where you have some of the dodge, you have some of the parry. God, the parrying is kicking my ass. I am so bad at parrying, but I think really this is a game that is absolutely beautiful, and I appreciate that also this is a French team that is drawing
so
from
French.
French culture. I
Yeah.
think that's something that we have seen occasionally. It's like we've seen French culture in, like, I think Assassin's Creed, there was a recent one. In Stars and Time is very French, but it's just really cool to see that, because I think also it's just not something we've seen super often. So I don't know. I'm digging it. I'm really enjoying it. I'm not super far. I'm close to finishing Act 1. But yeah, very, very proud of the team.
Janet, how are you feeling about Clair Obscur?
Yeah, I love this game. I'm eating this game up. This game, I have definitely my complaints, and yet I don't even care about my complaints, which are mostly just like navigational and some of the layers of like the level design, which I'll get into at the end of my take, because I don't want to open my take of I love this game, here's what's wrong with it, even though that is how I felt playing it in a way. I'm like, and then I'm like, oh my god, the combat is so fantastic. Yeah, combat and narrative, like you mentioned, Jenny, that's really what shines brightest for me. There's other things to enjoy and appreciate in the game. It is shockingly funny. I was not expecting this game to be really amusing. You know, I don't think you're gonna necessarily like laugh out loud at any of the jokes, but it's all just very amusing and charming, and it just feels like y'all had fun making this. And I love the it's been making me think a lot about it's been making me think a lot about the dichotomy of stakes, like end of the world level stakes, which like RPGs love an end of the world level stake, and dumb stuff, which I think they're so together so often, which also I think makes this game feel very like traditional. You know, it's funny talking about this, following up the genre conversation, because this is such a game that said, I see you, genre, and here's what I'm doing with it, in terms of you know, it drawing from JRPG sensibility specifically. I think in terms of having massive style is like one thing. No offense to Western RPGs, but some of those Atlas be eating us up with those RPGs in terms of look. And I think it's a very good looking and fun to look at game. But the thing I really love about the combat is, and I am enjoying the dodging and parrying too, even though I can't parry, so I've mostly not been doing it. I've just been dodging, and I parried like 8 times, and I'm like, oh my god, am I really good at games? And then not really, but not really. You're gonna get your ass kicked in like 10 seconds. But what's so great about the turn-based combat is how synergistic the abilities are among your cast. And we've seen, you know, I've certainly seen synergy in games like this before. I think of, you know, AAA side, Metaphor Refantagio, I think has a great synergy between the different, oh my gosh, what are the things that you get in that game? They're not personas, they're archetypes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you're kind of building out your kit, but I think that, you know, the game's very different. It takes like a individualized, like level up each archetype, and then they get different ability. This game's more straightforward than that. And I think that's what makes it kind of, in a way, a different kind of fun that I think can kind of get going a little bit quicker. So much of the game's combat is filling up meters, ultimately. You know, your first character that you get and that you have is Gustav. He's all about the filling up, I think, the overcharge for like one of his moves, and it's like, it says very clearly, I think the information's conveyed very well of, okay, doing this, you build up 2 charges, this builds up a charge, ooh, your overcharge is here, and then you unleash like massive damage, fairly early-ish, because you get the second character like 10 seconds later, and then the third character a little bit later. Like Mael is all about stances, so it's like, okay, well, if she does a bunch of damage in a virtuoso stance, maybe I think, you know, how can I get her into that stance more easily or more often? And it's like, oh, well, I have this move where if you hit an enemy that has flame damage, you're gonna go into flame. So, you know, Jill, you mentioned board games and card games and things earlier. Not to scare people off who zone out over rules in board games, because again, I think this is very direct and very clear. This has like big card game, board game energy. Like that rush of when you've figured out how to play a game and implement a strategy and execute that strategy is felt in this game, where I feel like the nerdiest nerd being like, well, actually, you have fire damage. So now my L's going to go to Virtuoso stance. Then I'm going to play my card, which lets her do this move and keeps her in Virtuoso stance. So for my next turn, then I'm using this thing, which only costs 2 AP when she's in Virtuoso stance. And it's very clear to like execute those kinds of things, but it's very satisfying. And that's just one character. You know, at any given time, you have a party of 3 that's like facing an enemy. So then you start to think of what are other ways these characters can kind of mechanically speak to each other, but also like engage with the enemies in front of you, because I think the enemies make you change your strategy as well, which helps keep it fresh. Because not gonna lie, like 15 hours in, still loving it, but I'm like, isn't this really just a bunch of meters filling up? And I'm like, yeah, I guess it is kind of samey in a way. But then like the enemies kind of kick in where I'm like, oh, but now I have to implement a different strategy than what I was doing to deal with like shielded enemies, for instance. And then that kind of can keep you on your toes. So I think they do a great job, not just having like an excellent combat system, but having a combat system that is evolving, and part of that is, of course, like the classic building your party, but part of it is also like the stuff you equip, the abilities you get, and just there's so many ways to play these characters. It doesn't take long to get to start digging into those options. Well, I think in other RPGs, it can kind of be a bit of a slow roll before you're like, and now everything's happening that I'm setting up. Here you can kind of set stuff up immediately, and it's super exciting. And I'm genuinely fascinated for where like the plot goes. I like want to see what happens next in a way that I don't necessarily always have in a game. I think also some games you kind of just, I don't know. It's interesting with an RPG where it's like, okay, I'm guessing they either succeed, maybe they fail, but it's a game, so they probably succeed. So then you kind of start to remove, I think, intrigue. Like so much of driving plot is creating curiosity and tension points in the player. And I think despite the fact that like ultimately, I'm guessing they either succeed or they fail. Like those are kind of two out. Like despite kind of in a way, it's a game, so you kind of feel like you know how it ends in a way. But the journey has been so compelling. I'm so intrigued on like the lore of this world, and on a baseline, not like in a I need to read all the notes kind of thing, but just on a, like what is going on with the antagonists of this game? Who is this, and like what's their storyline, and how does that impact me? What might I not know about the characters that I'm playing as? It has a lot of nice little mysteries that are there, and the cutscenes are great too because they come in so often, but they're very short. Which,
thank goodness.
Look, Atlas, you make a good RPG. But I'm kind of tired, and same for the Like a Dragon team. Oh my god, those like after a while you put to, my beef with those is I think they can harm the momentum of gameplay for me. Where sometimes I sit down and I'm like, oh my god, okay guys, we got like 2 hours to play before you mess up your sleep cycle. And then you sit down and they're like, let me tell you about my father. And I'm like, right now though, I could have eaten lunch and played this. Oh, I really wanted to get into gameplay. And in Claire, you're in and out really quickly, but also it comes frequently enough where you keep the story in mind, even if you're someone who's like getting distracted by side stuff. Like it's very easy to be like, I know exactly what's happening. I know the wild stuff to come. I know the wild thing that just happened, and you're in it in a way that I think is really hard to do in the context of a video game, because you don't know how often people are playing. You don't know when they're stopping off, but it's got such good on and off ramps. It's a good game.
It is
100%.
And I
And
feel the critics were right. This was a great video game.
what a concept. It's so funny seeing like back to back, like this is the game you have to play for the year kind of discussions.
Yeah.
Because I was not here to talk about Blueprints with y'all, and that is one of my major disappointments for the year. Because oh my gosh, am I?
I know. I felt like you were there though.
I was there. I was in the zeitgeist.
I'm like, are you sure you weren't there? Like,
but no, you feel like I was there because I was in everybody's, like every single person I saw who was like playing this game for stream game. I was in that chat. I was like, okay, I'm gonna be here. We're gonna do this together. I'm gonna have such a fun time. And like, even no matter if they had been in for like an hour, there were still things that they were seeing that I hadn't seen yet. This game is so freaking good. Blueprints, it's so funny to hear people talk about it because people were talking about it back at GDC. And so I knew it was going to be a big thing. And the amount of people who like hadn't played it yet, who are like, I guess I have to see what this game's about. Or even people who are like, I'm tired of talking about this game. Like, I'm tired of hearing people talk about this game because there's just everybody's raving about it. Who like I now see talking about it because they love it. Just like, this is so great. I think I mentioned this earlier. I'm at like the 80-hour point and I still don't see the end of this game. Like there's no end to this rabbit hole as far as I
You
can
did
tell.
hit credits though, yes?
Oh yeah,
When did
yeah,
you-
yeah.
when did
I
you
hit credits at 18. I hit credits at 18
Because
hours.
I got
And
a
I
little
put-
scared. I got a little nervous.
And then I put an extra like
Yes. Well, actually, I have a question on that
60
front.
hours in.
Just out of curiosity, obviously, we're not going to spoil anything you
Yep.
know, on the show, and I haven't finished it, so I really don't want to spoil it for myself as well. How did you feel about the moment you hit credits? Did you feel satisfied with that as a form of a conclusion? Did you feel like,
Yes.
I kind of got to go more? Like, what was that feeling?
I think if you are the kind of person who wants to play a game that is there's a mystery, uncover the mystery and done. And like whatever, there's strings that I could follow and unravel. I just want to like feel like I'm in the zeitgeist and feel like I was with everybody and then move on. It's totally satisfying, 100%. I'm not that kind of person. I can't let something go. So as soon as I hit credits, I was like, but that one thing though, I do have to check out that one thing. And that one thing turned into another thing because like you don't realize until you do that one thing that there's going to be more. Oh, just one more thing. The
Mhm.
game's really, really good at getting you on that treadmill of like, oh, but now I have to go. I have to find this so that I can attach it to this so that I can see what this is. And then, like, I didn't even put different, like, how much spoilers? I didn't even know you could do things with items that you can do until like
Sure.
really late
Mhm.
game.
I think that's a good tease.
You know, so like like that opened up a whole new world for me where I'm like, oh, I got to see what all this does. I had not. There are permanent upgrades in the game for anybody. Like that's not a spoiler. That's just something that is true because it is a roguelike and you lose your progress at the end of the day. But there are things that give you permanent upgrades. I didn't have them all by the time that I rolled credits. I didn't even know how to unlock them all by the time I rolled credits. So I've continued to do that. I didn't know. I knew the very basics of the story by the time I had rolled credits, enough to be like, okay, cool. I've come up with some sort of idea of what's happening in this world, but then like following more and more down the rabbit hole, it's like, oh wow, okay, there's a lot going on in this game. A lot of political intrigue, a lot of family dynamics that are going on, a lot of like
Other things.
crime.
Lots of things happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just finding out like all of the dynamics of the house and who all the people are
Mm-hmm.
in it and that sort of thing. So that's been a lot of fun. I played so much of this. I would get up and just think about this game is so good. I was just thinking about like, how do I do this? How do I get to this? And continue. And the gameplay itself is so easy to just jump back in and play around with. I just put so many hours into this and I got kind of obsessed to the point where I'm like, I need to step away. Like I need time away from this game right now because this is all I'm going to do. Which isn't a bad thing, you know? And it's so good. It's so good. Just I watched, if you haven't seen it yet, go and check out Kind of Funny spoiler cast. If you're interested in that kind of thing. Because even watching that, I was like, oh, it's hilarious how much some people don't know. Like the things that they're discovering on stream with each other, just talking about things.
Yeah.
And the things that they mentioned where I'm like, oh, maybe I should go check that out. Yeah, it's so good. It's so good.
I'm kind of just like, I don't even know this. I feel like sort of like I'm in a toxic position with my gaming right now because like Blueprints was there and I was like, this is my person. And then I'm like, they're obscure. We've been hanging out a lot actually. And is it wrong that I don't want to, that I'm turning my location off when I go play Clear Obscure so Blueprints doesn't know where I am, you know, because the truth is, yeah, like I was so locked in on Blueprints. It was every time I get a second away from work before sleep, I'm going to play this. And then Clear Obscure became the game. And now I'm
That's
like,
exactly what happened to me.
and now I'm like, and I think that's such a, I mean, that's not no shade to Blueprints, but like it's just I'm like, oh, I can't believe I got like I can't believe I got stolen from
Yeah.
Blueprints.
But
Like,
here's the
Claire
thing.
Obscure.
I feel Claire Obscure, and I've not finished, is going to be a finite ending. You will
Yeah.
finish that game. It's
Yeah.
an RPG, so it's going to be like 150 hours or whatever. But after that, you will finish.
It's supposed
I
to be
don't know if you can
shorter.
finish
I probably will take a
Blueprints.
while though.
I don't
No.
know anyone who's finished Blueprints.
Yeah, that's the thing. I want to
Know what
hear
I'm
from someone
saying?
who's completely finished because
Mhm.
I heard from someone who thought they finished and then they were like, I set it down and they had, I think, 120-ish hours. And
Was it
then they
Rebecca
found out.
Valentine?
No, it wasn't Rebecca Valentine. It was
Oh my
someone
God,
else.
scary to think there's more than one person playing at the level of Rebecca
Yeah,
Valentine.
to that level. Yeah.
And they were like, oh my God, I thought I finished it. I got a message from a friend who discovered this other thing. It is not done. And I was
Yeah.
just like, what the heck? Because they are in basically like a Discord server with other people dedicated to blueprintsing like all the time. And so they're sharing theories. They're going super
Mhm.
deep in. They have this like Miro board that they work on together with the clues. It's absolutely wild.
And it's like, I know that I'm never going to finish that game because I don't have that kind of dedication. I am never going to get that level. Like, I've hit some of that level of puzzling, and I'm
Mhm.
like, that's great for y'all. I'm so glad that you are going to figure this out, and someone's going to like explain it to me in a YouTube video at some point.
You
The
know,
full
I
walkthrough YouTubers
Oh
are
my God.
quivering. We're trying to figure out
I'm
how to
so
make
excited
this
for
game.
them. I feel like for me, this is kind of what I did with Animal Well last year, where like there were like 3 or 4, layers of puzzles. And at first it was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do all of the layers and it's gonna be amazing. And I ended up stopping at the egg hunt. I was like, you know what? If I can do the egg hunt and complete it, I will be fine.
Mhm.
And then that's where I stopped it because I was like, I don't think I'm not that hard. You know what I mean? I'm just like not ready to take it to that level. And I think I'm going to try it with Blueprints, but I seriously don't think I will be able to.
Right. There's also another really great game, a puzzle game that is better, I think, with a partner, with someone who is
Yep.
there with you,
Yeah.
or a Discord chat or something, not just looking it up online because it is very much. I've definitely done it. I ain't gonna lie. I've definitely like, what the heck am I missing? And then I looked. I'm like, no, that I had 90% of it, and the last 10% is absolute bullshit. But like, if you have someone there to talk through things, it just feels a lot more
Mhm.
like impactful. So yeah, that's Blueprints. If you haven't played it yet and you've been hearing everybody say they love it and you're like, it can't be that good, like it is though. Like it is though.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing people that don't really like it, and I can understand that conceptually because it's like I guess you just don't like putting down roofs. I don't know,
Right.
but like I think it's I think it has a very easy and a wide hook, like wider than you might think. But it definitely hasn't caught everybody. I guess maybe if you're not maybe if you don't find something early enough to like compel you, because that's what that keeps me like going, where I just feel like there's always something where I'm like, oh, and now I can work on this thing, and having that list of objectives to carry me through. But yeah, definitely don't. I think this is a game. Blueprints has given more existential crises to people than anything else, because I definitely think there are those people who are like, I don't get it. You're just putting down rooms. Like, what's wrong with me? And it's like, I don't know. Like, maybe you just have you. It doesn't hit for you. And maybe you have valid criticisms of it, but like,
Yeah,
it just it's it's like that. It's like the Parks and Rec thing with the like where Ben Wyatt was like, everyone loves this little horse. I don't get it.
Yeah.
And it's like you kind of
Little
just gotta be like, I don't.
Sebastian
Yeah,
was
they're like,
Rebecca
I,
his
like, I
name?
don't understand. Yeah, Little Sebastian was his name. Yeah, I think Blueprints might be some people's Little Sebastian, and you just gotta be like, you know what? I don't know.
I think there's
you
a
gotta
lot of
eat it.
there's
Mhm.
a lot of people. I think once you get into day 15 and onward, where people really everything really clicks about what is actually going on in this game, or what actually I think there are a lot of people sub 10 day sub, you know what I'm saying,
Mhm.
that are like, I don't get it, you're just putting down rooms and it starts over again, and it's like, no, you need to like what you need to see what's happening here in order to like what I've just like the people who are like, okay, I get the puzzles, as if like the puzzles are just like the thing in the parlor room with the like logic clues and the like math.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think
It's
it's
like,
also like
that's-
what what you might want out of a game. Like I think a lot of people have stepped to Blueprints and they want Lorelei, and Blueprints just isn't Lorelei. It doesn't mean it's a worse game, but it's a very different style. So if you want to just be like, everywhere I step, I want to feel like I'm engaging with a puzzle, Blueprints doesn't have that for a long time. Like it does seem like it gets there eventually, but also that's what I like about it. Like I like that it's sort of slow rolled to me because I can't walk through that mansion that Lorelei's walking into.
Yeah.
Like I just can't do it. I everywhere I turn, there's something I can't understand. And in Blueprints, I'm like, when I go into the kitchen, I get 2 steppies or I lose 2 steppies. And I'm like, that
I can
makes
pick up
sense.
a banana or an orange.
Exactly. And it's,
Salt
I think
on
having
it.
that very clear, I know there's a lot of the antechamber haters out there where they're like, don't focus on the antechamber. It's a red hair, whatever. It's like, it's nice to have
Fine.
structure on what
It's
to
a
do.
first
Yeah.
goal. Yeah.
It's a
That's
good
cool.
first.
Go for it.
And,
And once you get there, it's
colors
rewarding.
the path. Yeah.
Like-
And I think, yeah, it's just, it's also a game where I think it's easy to say, okay, where's the masterpiece? And be like, I don't see it here. Where is it? Was I misled? And like, maybe in a way, I guess you personally were, but I think it's also just step to the game like it's a regular game, you know? And I think we all love it and find things special about it. But at the end of the day, like, a game is a game. Like, play it and see where it takes you without, don't get too caught up on it needs to have taken me somewhere by like a certain time. Like, are you enjoying the flow of it?
Mhm.
And if the answer is no, like maybe you just never get to the part where, sure, in another life, you go to day 30 and then suddenly it's your favorite game of all time. But like maybe you're not in that life. But if you want to try to be, you can. That's that's between you and your gaming time, I think.
Right. Yeah. I definitely think that the people who expect to walk in and see the Lorelei puzzles and like I
Yeah.
don't get what's going on and like the numbers floating above and they're like, I don't get it. People are talking about taking physical notes. Like, why would you ever need to take notes in
Yeah.
this game? Yeah, that's not until later,
Yeah.
I promise you.
I love the TikToks that I've been seeing though. People have been just doing TikToks, just showing the notes that they have from
Yeah.
Blueprints. It's great. I love, like, it's cool seeing that. So yeah, it's nice to just have the moment, have the zeitgeist.
Yeah. Have fun, everybody. Speaking of having a moment, this game came out last week and I was on vacation, so I didn't get to check it out until yesterday, I want to say. Creepy Redneck Dinosaur 3 is so fun. Like, I played this on stream yesterday, and I logged off and then I continued playing it.
That's
It
when
is-
you know it's really hitting.
It's really hitting. It's so good. This is Strange Scaffold. First of all, you have to love. I love absurdity. I love absurdity. So just this being called Creepy Redneck Dinosaur 3 is intriguing. But you have essentially it is a game that is very knowledgeable about gaming as a genre, as a hobby, and making a lot of very silly puns and like pointing out game logic in a way where you're like, you're not supposed to think about the game logic, but they are. So it's funny on that level. It is so compelling because you're constantly getting traits by interacting with things and by overcoming challenges. The game is also hugely fourth wall breaking, which can be a hit or miss, but this one's really, really fun. So the idea that you've suddenly broken this wall and now you can go back and check out different things and you're essentially going through and it's a branching kind of choose your own adventure sort of thing. So you can go back and choose different adventures and find different paths and different items and different traits, which will allow you to unlock other branches and other traits, which will allow then you continue to go back and forth. And it's really, really fun. And then the match 3 part of it is really clever as well. I love a good match 3 game. It is different than I was expecting because there's usually some sort of objective. So like if you're fighting something, it's like match the knives to fight the dinosaur. Like it's just funny on that level. But like you also, when you pick up different attributes and traits and stuff, a lot of the times it will unlock an action in the match 3. So if you match these things together and you collect them, on your side and you get enough of them, now you can unleash like a shoulder hit to do extra damage. So you're constantly trying to do all of this stuff. And they play around with all the different objectives and things you're supposed to do all the time. The writing is so funny. Xalavier is such a smart, hilarious person to the point where it like makes me upset that he's just that funny and that smart. Yeah. It's a really fun game. And it's so like easy on the brain. I'm trying to this week get through everything and get through so many emails and get through so many things. I'm like, I just need to sit down and kind of relax. But like I don't want to do a nothing. I feel like I'm wasting my time game. This is just absolutely perfect for that. The story's great. The protagonist, all of the characters are really great. They're really fun. You feel for them, even though it's like sexy dinosaur number 3 or something. Like I kind of feel for
Are
you.
they actually
though.
sexy?
There is a storyline, a whole storyline, Janet,
Okay.
that you'll have to go through, and it's
Which I think is
awakens.
also that's worth noting too, right? It's a campaign, yes? Or no?
Yes. It is not just a match
For the
3
credit sickos
play
like
forever.
me who are like, I need the game to pat me on the head and say, you can leave now, and I'll say thank you, game, and I go to my next game.
Yes, as far as I know, despite the fact that it's like branching narratives, there is like a beginning and an end, as far as I understand it.
Nice.
So yeah, go check that out. Jenny, Lost Records Bloom Rage. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I have been trucking through. I don't know this.
I think
Trucking
it's
through. Okay.
Yeah, it's an Eikenhorn.
Yeah, I am almost done with it. I'm very, very close. Going through tape 2 right now. And so far it's been emotional, but very like pleasant to play, I would say. It's still very like I think it's having emotional impacts. I'm connecting with the characters. I think the depiction of like really close, like the sisterhood that these characters create in the summertime moment is something that we don't often get to see in games. And I really want to celebrate that because it was just really cool to see. And I'd love to explore that even more. I think my biggest issue right now is the pacing feels like off to me. And I'm playing it back to back. And I know that folks who played tape 1, I think, waited a month before they got to play tape 2.
Yeah.
And I feel like even not having that break, with that break, I would have felt really disappointed because it was like a bad season finale was the end of tape 1. Where
I'm trying so hard not to like have all these emotions on my face and hear you talk about it.
Because, okay, what happens at the end of tape 1, there is a big reveal, but there is no like tie or end to the arc that you experienced in tape 1. There is no, it just kind of like leaves you hanging off of a cliff, which I feel like is ineffective storytelling. There should have been a really good arc within that, within the reveal. Even with tape 2, we're now like coming in at the low end of that reveal. It just feels very off for me. And so I'm glad I'm playing it all together because I can kind of in my head just pretend that break wasn't there and just keep going. But I think really the game's biggest problem is its pacing. The story has a lot of heart. I think it's very sweet. So far, I haven't finished it, so I don't know if the ending is sweet. But yeah, I think overall it's a solid game. Definitely would recommend it if you like the narrative games, choice-based games. But yeah, there are just some problems with that just are in the back of my mind constantly, I think, when I play.
Yeah, I thought that too when the first game came out and all
The
the
tape 1?
reviews for the first tape 1
I
came
can't
out, and it
imagine
was
having
just
played
like,
tape 1 and just
yeah,
having that be left where it
happen.
was.
And I was like,
I
there's
would have been
no way
upset.
with this
I was.
as your impression, I don't see how you could go into tape 2 and be like, this is actually a triumph, unless something amazing had happened in the second game.
That's what I'm feeling too. Which Jenny, you said you started tape 2 though, right?
Yeah, I'm about halfway through it, I would guess. If you know, it's like I am sneaking into the ranch right now. if that happens to be a point of reference. So wherever that is in tape 2.
I'll be there at some point. I've been putting off tape 2 because Claire came by also. And I
Yeah.
was like, game I like versus game I am 95% chance of disliking.
Yeah.
Like tape 1 just did not do it for me. So I'm like, I don't. And again, the mechanics are also like largely, the same. So I'm like, I really struggle to imagine. And I know some people definitely, there are people out there that really rock with the Lost Records story and they really like the game a lot. But the more I look around, like a lot of the other people are like, tape 2, you're not gonna like it. And I'm like, I know. But I have to finish it just because it's like, it's my, you're talking about genre, it's my genre. So I have to pull up, even if I'm pulling up to bring bad news. Like, I don't know. But I am excited though to hear, your finalized thoughts, Jenny. And I know you guys are doing that for your for Geeks and Grounds, right?
Yeah. And I think I appreciate it more having taken it really slow and discussing it through the Geeks and Grounds community. I think if I was playing it by myself, I probably honestly would have bounced off after tape 1, if I'm being really, really honest.
The thought of booting it up feels like a chore.
Yeah.
Like, I know our job, like, it's like, oh, your job's playing games. But there are times where, and this sometimes happens with good games too. It's not like only like games that I don't hate. Like sometimes you're just like, oh man, well, I gotta keep working for the review. So it's definitely not exclusive to this, but it's like I know I need to do that the way I need to do my laundry or my dishes, and I hate that it's there because I think it does have, it was one of my most anticipated games of the year. So obviously I am a little sad, but I am heartened by the fact that I have that Geeks and Grounds thing to look forward to. Because like I'm not always playing like the games that y'all have on there. So whenever they're like, I went back for Firewatch when y'all did that. So I'm like, you know what? I got to remind myself, the reward I get is getting to talk about the game on podcasts and getting to listen to your podcast. So that's almost enough to, it's more than I get other times. So I think that's something I'm going to remember. But yeah, they're always fun to talk about, even when they don't necessarily pan out.
Yeah.
I'm getting the mental image of Janet like going over and clicking towards Lost Records, and then boop, oh, it's Claire Obscure.
I think I did install it, so that's something. And it's like, I don't even want to like get into the baggage I have. I hate the review cycles that are like before tape 1 comes out, you had it, but then for tape 2, they're just like when it launches, you get it, and like and sure, I can kind of, but then it's like, if you gave it to me earlier, I probably would have beaten it by now, just to be like, oh, like, it's out now, and I did the content. But it's like, well, now.
Well, I would imagine from a PR perspective, and there's probably a lot that went into like them dividing it into 2, but I'm like, even if you divide it into 2 for consumers, like, I imagine you would want to give the people reviewing the game that full context for what is happening. So when they write the review of the first half, like, I think they would have had more to work with, I think.
Okay, the last thing I have to say, which because I really shouldn't be beating on Lost Records Bloom and Rage too much. I haven't even finished it, but it's cool if you don't agree. But Jenny, do you get what I mean now when I said it ends with like what you saw in the trailer is the whole game, like like of that tape 1, genuinely, and not in a like wow they spoiled it in the trailer. It's more like, oh wait, where's like it's that where is the rest of it?
Yeah,
and I'm like like I was really interested in that, and they're like I know, and now you go to sleep. I'm like, what? Like, we still have mixtape for like the
we
more
still have mixtape.
teen feelings, music. And I'm ready to be heard again. Like, I'm always ready to be heard again. So, steps to the play mixtape.
Let's do it.
I can't wait.
If you're going to be in New York in the June-ish time. Okay.
Don't tell me what you think because I'm scared to know. If you're in New York, don't message me. I'll message you.
I want to hype everybody up for a game that is, I think, out today as far as people who are watching this. It's not out. It's there's a demo. Like, I got to play this last year, I want to say, like PAX West, and I've been keeping my eye on it ever since. And this is Omoot.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, y'all. I literally didn't put this game down until my hands had fused into the controller, and I was like walking like this because I couldn't like move my hands anymore. Because here's the thing about Omoot. It's so good, and it is so it keeps you in a loop like you cannot. First of all, it captures my love of absurdity and absolute weirdness. This is going to be a game I think that all of us are interested in because it is not only good, but like it's a sicko game. Like Mike's going to love it for the sicko-ness. You're in some sort of like fever dream purgatory is about the best I can think of at this moment. It's a really beautiful in a kind of creepy, inky way of like CRTV like lines and like everything looks a little fuzzy. Everything looks a little bit like you're looking at security footage. Everything's a little orange and you're walking through a world that makes no sense. And all these things are slightly absurd, but also startling and scary. And you don't know what's going on. And people are talking to you about like, you do know things are going on. And it's just, it's well done. Because sometimes this kind of dialogue can be like alienating. It's like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what this is. But it's like, it draws me in. I'm like, I want to know what's happening and what the hell I'm in for and why. Did I just get this gun from this character calling himself Count something something? And why did I sell my soul to him in order to get this? But basically this game, on top of this really cool like metaphysical, who knows what's going on existential level, is sort of a boss rush. And the only thing you have to go with, at least for the first boss, is this gun. And it's sort of a shotgun. You can get like 4 shots off, but then you have to like reload. And this boss is like all the game. It's super fast paced, super like you need to be in it. It reminds me a lot of Nine Souls in that way. You need to be on your game immediately and for the entire time. The smart thing they do for this game, not only is it super fun, super intuitive, you don't need anything to understand what you are doing in this fight. In order to start the boss over again, you hit the same button as shooting. So a lot of the times I will have restarted the boss encounter while the last shot is still ping-ponging around the screen that I'm in. So it's like I've never stopped. It's just a continuous like thing, you know? And it's like that is so genius of just like I've never felt like I stopped playing, but by death 150, I was like I am definitely going to get it. By death 550, I had seen the final like animation so many times that I thought I was going to win. And then I got it before I think 570 was somewhere in there. But it's like, because it's so much over and over again, it's just getting into the zone of like, he's going to go this way. The first boss, by the way, it's sort of just like a game of keep the boss in the air, because if the boss hits the ground, you die automatically. So you're taking the shotgun and shooting, and he'll go like it's got physics logic, so he'll hit walls and stuff and maybe jump and try to mess with you. But you'll at the end of it, I was able to just go shoot, 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 shoot. Okay, we're into round 2. Shoot, shoot, step, step, shoot, shoot, step, step, shoot, shoot, and then he would phase 3 would like zoom around, and I'm like, okay, this is where I'm gonna get messed up. So just shoot, 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 shoot. But you can't shoot, 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 shoot because you're playing with a shotgun. So you have to like reload. So you have to be really mindful about when you're shooting and how often you're shooting. So it really is just kind of like a rhythm game at that point where you're just in it. You're just in that flow state and you feel so good. By the time I got to the end and I was just like, oh my God, that was so much fun. And I kind of want to go back and just replay it, even though I've played this encounter so many times. That is just that much fun to play. And I am so interested to see the death counts for everybody because like I was really thinking by 150, I was like, I'm right around the corner. No, I was not. But after you finish that boss, you get a kind of another ability that you don't know about until you get to the next boss. And then they show you that you have that ability. And I'm like, oh, cool. And there's also like a like a little Nexus place with like a happy little toadstool guy. It was like, oh, this is the first guy that's like nice. Okay. So yeah, I don't know what's going on. You've got at one point kind of like an overworld map view where your little characters like running around and stuff. You're just getting into adventures. I don't know what this game is, and I love it. So I also really like, if you played this, Janet, I think at PAX, I didn't get to beat any of the bosses because of the time limit. Because it's just like over and over and over. You're supposed to die a lot.
Yeah.
So they
And,
did just. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say also they only had like mouse and keyboard at
Yeah.
PAX.
This one
said,
definitely had. Yeah.
I'm like, I need a controller to really be okay at games. So I was like, I was kind of fighting an uphill battle just with the when my card declines at therapy, I show up to a preview event where it's a mouse and keyboard only, and I'm like, oh my god, please no. Yeah, I mean, I think the game is, the second I played it, which again was a year ago, was it even 2? I think it was last year. I was like, this game is going to be a mega viral hit in my mind, which obviously that is going to be contingent on many things, coverage, PR, luck, proper outreach, whatever. But like, if the cards are played right, I feel like this will be a banger, just because I think the movement feels really good. And I think the key thing on the difficulty, because it's funny that you're like, oh, this is going to appeal to all of us. If I hadn't played it and heard you describe it, I'd be like, no, I don't want to play that. That sounds awful. Because I'm not a big difficulty girly. Like, I don't really want to do that. But I have my moments, and I think this game, because the boss area, it's classically like 2D kind of configuration where it's just like you're in a room and you're just dealing with like attacks. The attacks are known because there's like a set move set, but they're not like bullet hell, because I'm really bad at dodging. Like, having to memorize projectile areas is just not something I'm good at or I enjoy doing in a game. This doesn't have that. It feels very achievable in the fight. I guess well, Joe, you can speak to this. How long does it actually take to
30
beat
seconds.
the boss?
Like, it
And
will
that's the
literally
key.
take you like 30 seconds. It's a 3-stage boss where you have to hit the boss like 4 times per stage.
Yes.
Like, it's not.
Mm.
And that's
It
kind of a key
shouldn't have
thing.
Like, it
for
shouldn't
me,
have
at
taken me that long,
least,
but it did.
That feeling of, actually, I need to be kind of tricked into difficulty. And what is it called? Omut? I never knew how to pronounce it.
I say Omut.
Omut.
Omut? O-M-U-T? Omut? It feels very achievable, and that will trick you into playing a lot longer than, and this is just like a psychological thing for me. If you said, I can guarantee that you'll beat this Elden Ring boss in 1 hour of work, I'd be like, 1, I think you're lying, and 2, I don't want to do that. But this game, same deal, I wouldn't want to do that, but they're like, well, just give it a try. And I'm like, oh, I almost have it. And that ability to go back in and do it, it's what I'm drawn to for difficulty, and this has that. And it also, despite being like a boss rush, essentially, that's like, 2D, and you're like dealing with enemies like flying around you or whatever, like a boss, it feels very Binding of Isaac, which I love that game. The sort of darkness to it is reminiscent of that for me. Again, it's not necessarily like the same mechanics by any means, but I felt that layer of it. It's got like a good grungy feel to it, where genuinely, I guess if you really hate killing a thing in a game, you wouldn't like it, but it's the kind of like quick action arcadey feel that I feel like anyone can appreciate. You might not become, full on obsessed about it, but you'll do it and say, well, hold on, wait, let me try that again. It's like, it's like chips. It's
But
like, well, you can't have just one. And they're like, oh, let me take a handful. Next thing you know, you've eaten like 4 of those bags.
Literally, the developer's genius here is that you do not have time to think, let me do it again, because you're already hitting the button to shoot. So when you die and you've hit that button because you're just you restart, you're just in it again, and the same projectile is bouncing around. So it's like so genius, because it's like you don't even get the second to think, maybe I should walk away from this, because you're so all in, and that feeling of like, just one more, I'm so close, is just complete momentum. There is no break. It is a splish and splash slide.
Someone get Northernlion on the phone. I want to see this
Yeah,
game when
oh
I'm
my
swiping through
gosh.
TikTok. Like, it's that kind of thing. Like, it's meant to be complimentary. I think there's like a lot of like mass appeal to it, in the way that like again, very different game, but like Cult of the Lamb was kind of a hit in that way. And I feel like this game, it's very different, but like the second I played it, and it's also one of those games where like, this is the preview session that we had. It was like maybe it was like 30 minutes or something. But the second I played it, I'm like, yep, this is a good game. Like when I leave here and you say like, what'd you think? I can just tell you what I thought because it's nothing but complimentary. Like it is just, it was good. It was interesting. It was different. It was grungy. It was exciting. Yeah. And you said, is it just the embargo's lifting or the game is out?
There's going to be a demo out as far as I know.
Cool. So this is definitely a give it a try because it won't take long to also, if you don't like it, you'll know that also immediately, which I think is really fun for a game to be able to achieve because it's like, cool, you're in it or you're not. You don't need to put in much time at all to know if you like this kind of gameplay.
Talking about genre, by the way, one of the really good examples of like different genres but not blended in any way, because it's like the beginning of this game is so adventure game. It's wild. It really gives me, if you ever played I Doesn't Exist, one of my more favorite games of the past few years of this genre. But then it immediately transfers into like arcadey shooter. And it's like, that shouldn't work together, but it so does.
What do you think, Jill, the arcade, the genre is for this on Steam?
Oh, gosh. Rogue?
It has a genre, like an indie is also one, but no, it's not Rogue.
Damn. Indie. Adventure.
There's only 600.
Action adventure.
No, just action.
Just action.
But also,
That's
shout
not
out!
what
I was looking at the Steam. I don't know. I would call it an action game. I mean, it's a very like blanket term, but you are shooting some stuff. You
be shooting some stuff. Like there's action
stuff.
But I wouldn't call it a
feel
simple
like I'm in the action. No, I probably would try to think of something. No offense, a little. I think we could do a little better, but maybe we can't do as good as I think. But I also want to shout out that apparently one of the 6-1 Indie Showcase official selection titles. This is they have this under awards on their Steam page. So there we go. It's in the family. Yeah, this game seems cool.
100%. Go check it out. I'm also gonna shout out. There you go. We got Mike here.
Yeah, Mike would like this game. It's a grungy little.
I think he played it, or maybe he was here but he didn't play it. I can't remember. Jenny, you weren't at that PAX. I remember. So I'm excited to hear what you think about it next week. But I believe that this is the end of the games we've been playing, unless anybody wants to stop me while I'm giving them that opportunity. Okay, no. So that's the end of this week's council. Thank you to everyone who joined us and stayed for the whole thing. Jenny, Janet, you guys are amazing. Anyone who would leave,
Mike,
anyone who would leave by 10 minutes in, who knows? But
you're like, I'm here with all my friends, and that's all my friends.
Yeah, everyone's here. Gang's all here. We're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. The Indie Council has its own socials. Specifically, check out Blue Sky at the Indie Council. But this session is closed. Go play some indies.